All right. Hello to everybody who's watching now and later. I'm here live with Mr. Jack Pitts, who is the founder of SLictionary and has a long history of working in various financial institutions. And normally I try to give a good introduction, but I actually don't think I can do Mr. Pitts justice. So I will, Jack, if you don't mind, maybe introducing yourself and taking us through your history and what brought you to Bitcoin, trite as that is, but uh, and sort of maybe a primer on where you're at now with all things.
Yeah, so working backwards, my main focus is the app SLictionary, which right now is just the web version, slictionary.com. We're creating the native iOS version, which should be out relatively soon, but it's being cleaned up in its alpha version. Some of our investors have the app and are playing around with it a little bit, but it's not quite done. And SLictionary is basically a dictionary, but communally sourced. It's a place where you can define your world. We think it's super important because on our dictionary, people own their own data and they actually make money from it. So it'd be sort of like if you combine the game Monopoly with Webster's dictionary, where you can actually own the words, and if people land on them, they pay you. In our case, landing on them means you see competitive definitions and you hit the what we call the like bulb. Instead of the thumbs up at Facebook, we have a like bulb, and if they hit your like bulb, then you get paid 70% of the revenues. So it's kind of a Apple App Store model. Also in BSV, I'm part of an angel, kind of a cross between a bunch of angel investors that are colleagues of mine or people known to me through that realm that are investing in BSV only businesses, mainly startups. And so we do look at any business that can be invested in the BSV space. And I think we have a handful of investments so far. We started in 2022. That's called Pi01 Ventures. You can find us on Twitter, I believe, and Twitch. And then I do a podcast with a partner named Len Mazer, who's also involved in both SLictionary and Pi01. And it's called Diamonds in the Rough. It's mainly been on Streamanity only. So you have to pay BSV to watch it. Looks like we'll be switching over to real world podcasts as we produce some of our older content and then do some of the new content. And my wife and I also run a homeschool out of Pennsylvania, and we use Bitcoin as part of the curriculum. Especially me, I teach something called Chess Club, which is sort of like Fight Club, only with chess and children. So we have, I think the youngest BSVer we have in our school is maybe 6, and he has a hand cash wallet. We charge money for things like we charge money if you're late, first of all.
That's great.
Yeah, that doubles every single week that they don't show up. If they all don't show up on time, the late fee doubles. I think they're up to $1.28 this coming Wednesday. They better all show up, or some parents are going to owe a lot of money. They're going to have to hit hand cashes. They're going to have to go to Word Bounty on SLictionary and start making some money for real.
Yeah.
We also we basically pay them if they answer questions right in class, but we also charge them if they answer questions wrong in class. Their homework has monetary value. If they do it, they get paid. If they don't do it, they get docked. So, and we define a word in SLictionary, usually a chess word, although this week's word is meme. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what they put in there, because we do allow GIFs in SLictionary. So that'll be fun to judge that. But usually they define things like rook and queen and castle, things like that.
How easily did the kids like adapt to this system?
Oh my God, they scream. So if I'm late, I have to pay them a bunch of money.
Yeah.
They are so excited when I come walking down. It's basically like a little school hut outside the main house, and when I come walking down the gravel driveway, you can hear them just screaming, looking out the window, looking at their watches. Every question I ask, I typically assign a little money to, so the participation is bonkers. I
Wow.
mean, everybody pays attention for sure. So it really, and then they learn economics a little bit. They learn their gambling odds, right? Just by, if I say, I'm trying to teach them, if I say the right answer is 20 cents, but it's only a penny if you get it wrong, to kind of know to take a stab at it, because you could be right, once out of 20 times and break even. Whereas if I say it's 1 penny if you're wrong and 1 penny if you're right, I'm trying to teach them, like, unless you know the answer, don't volunteer. You're going to end up in the negative chip. So kids end up with, at the end of class, sometimes they owe money to the school.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I like that. It's
yeah.
like a little game theory exercise. Yeah.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. And then in my family, we play a non-software based game called the Swear Jar, which obviously, if the parents violate it, they're paying like a penny or a dime or whatever the swear is worth. But the kids aren't allowed to say the C word, which is CAN''T. And if they say it, they owe everyone in the room that heard it a penny for their negativity. And I learned that from Derek Jeter, the baseball player, who I'm sure you're familiar with, being a New Yorker.
Sure.
And I think his father implemented that. And from what I saw of Jeter's career, definitely something to emulate, to not teach your kid. It's not that there aren't certain things that you're not able to do, obviously, jump into a volcano and live. But the idea is, well, maybe I can jump in the volcano and live. What if I put myself in a capsule, or, yeah. The idea is to teach them to think that they can do stuff if they just put their mind to it in a different creative way.
Absolutely.
So really excited about that. So that's all the BSV stuff. And prior to that, in less than 10 seconds, 20 years of equity analysis, mainly on technology companies, especially .coms, dating back to about 98, when .coms first started getting hot. Prior to that, was picking stocks as a kid. So I've always been into it, but I was also in the submarine Navy for about 5 years out of college, and went to Penn State here in the good old Pennsylvania state here, and studied math, physics. So always had a hand in both tech and business, and always liked fintech. Early investor in PayPal back before anybody knew who Elon Musk and I forget the other guy's name, Peter Thiel, were.
Right.
I always kind of hated them because they sold the company to eBay, which really pissed me off. I was an investor in some wallets in 2006 that were gambling wallets. I think it was probably 2004, actually. So I was
digital wallets.
Yeah. So NetTeller was an interesting wallet because it let you move money from one online poker room to another, which was really important back in the poker craze of the mid to early zeros, because people would get invited to a tournament, like say party poker, and then on Monday, and then on Tuesday, they'd want to be in the tournament for, say, 888.com, and they need to move the money. And as you've probably learned, as any good Bitcoiner or cryptocurrency person has learned, moving money around can be quite costly. And it's even worse for the casino, because people will put the $100 in on the Super Bowl, lose the bet, and then call their credit card company and tell them, I didn't place that. I have no idea where that came from.
Yeah.
And it'll get reversed. And people like, the gambling company, Calvin Air would be a perfect example. He was running Bodog at the time. Those guys would lose out. And the funny thing is, the amalgam of the money and the tech and the wallet and all that stuff that Craig was watching the whole time before he built Bitcoin was the same thing I was looking at. I was looking to own gold without having to own gold with e-gold and gold money and these things. Now he's got a much deeper history than I do. He mentions things that I didn't even know existed back then. But I was into that whole music thing where he talks about Grokster and LimeWire and Napster and all that stuff. That was all a big deal in the early zeros. So I have a very firm history of all that stuff. So I identify with Craig extremely well because I know a lot of the history he talks about. And that helps make a lot of sense of why he did Bitcoin and why he did it the way he did. And I think it's kind of important because, he's my exact same age. And I feel like he's sorely misunderstood for a lot of reasons that have to do with age. People in crypto are very young. And, youth comes with a lot of gumption and energy and kind of at the same time a bit of lack of experience of knowing the difference between, I would say, theory and reality. And it takes a little while to kind of learn that. And at the same time, we're also of the older crowd, so it's hard for us to understand the new, like new tech. It's like new music. It goes right over your head a little bit unless you really dig in. So it's very important to me to stay young by looking at the new tech and not just, growing with my age and sticking to the things that I'm familiar with. So that's how I keep myself young. I like to hang out with younger people because I think I thrive on their energy, and I get excited about the same things they do, even though I don't understand it exactly the way they do. Anyway, that's my perspective.
Yeah, well, thanks for all that. And that was probably the most heartwarming use of Bitcoin I've ever heard, to use it to teach these kids and your own family and all that. So
Hey, Gen Z, man, they love it. I mean, nobody loves it more than them because my kids don't even know what it's like to not have Bitcoin. They've had it, since they've first understood what money is. They're like, well, is it, cash? Is it credit card? Is it Bitcoin? They don't know anything different. And that I think is really cool.
Yeah, it kind of gets straight to the idea of Bitcoin being a commodity that money travels through, right? Like just taking advantage of, because like in my generation, we've grown up with purely digital money. I even got into just as a quick anecdote. Like I worked with a guy, did a couple jobs with a guy who's in his 60s, and he would take me. He very generously would give me rides to and from work, and he really wanted me to pay him for gas, and which of course, and I was more than happy to. And I kept telling him, yeah, just like give me your PayPal or your Zelle or your Venmo or your Cash App, whatever. And he actually eventually got really angry because he thought I was dodging paying him.
Right.
And I was just like, no, man, like I was just waiting to give you the money how I'm like most familiar with giving money,
Yeah.
And it was just a really funny thing. And I had to, soften this grudge with him because he genuinely thought I was like unappreciative of what he was doing and all that, because he was expecting me to show up with $20 cash. And I just barely, I very rarely carry dollar bills at this time. So just a funny thing, and I think that, kids today will, they will glom onto the, micropayments and the complete liquidity of Bitcoin much, quicker and it just makes sense to them even more, And I can say that for me, like the first time I ever sent half a cent from one wallet to another was like a life changing kind of thing. I mean, it truly, really felt like a complete paradigm shift. So, yeah, I think for kids to experience that and not be wowed is like that's a step into the future. So, yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, I have the kids call him Uncle Bill. He's a guy who's probably 20 years my senior, and he always complains that I don't send enough pictures of the family. And I'm like, well, do you have Snapchat? Because that's how we send each other pictures. It's too much of a pain to open up 3 different apps to take a picture and then email it and all this stuff. And he doesn't want to, he not only doesn't want to get Snapchat, but he doesn't even want to get an iPhone. I'm like,
Yeah.
if you're on there, you'll see you'll have more pictures than you know what to do with. But if you want me to take a picture with the regular camera, email it, you're going to get the 1 to 2 pictures that I send you specifically per year, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting that the sort of one vision of the hyper Bitcoinization future that I've been talking about with people like Jack Liu is that in the future, if the chain is the database for everything, you're no longer kind of like gate kept into certain services or anything, right? Because it's like a picture that's posted on the Facebook will also be available on the Instagram and the Twitter and the blah blah blah. So everything will have this sort of interoperability that will hopefully, I think make, in a lot of ways, it's just going to make people, it's going to keep people, young in that way, where like a new service has to really offer you something beyond uh, what 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 that database can offer. So the database just will hold all the information, and people will be able to share it in novel ways. And I think that there's this interesting side to Bitcoin where people see that as being like even though it's like obviously it's like a type of technology that's so futuristic, it actually allows people to like regress from being completely technologically, or like, oh, I don't want to say technologically dependent, but like being dependent on like services, right? Being dependent on this app or this company or something like that. Instead, you can kind of sit back from that and like, enjoy nature, so to speak, while still getting all the benefits of the database.
It's interesting that we're saying the word database a lot, because I was just, I saw Ian Grigg and another guy on Twitter, some blue check mark or something, and they were pontificating on the definition of money. And the definition of money is why I'm here in BSV. If Bitcoin isn't the thing that I think it is, which would be a commodity, then I'm in grave error of even being here. So that's how I entered the system. I entered late because I didn't really see it as a commodity. It just looked like faith-based money, which to me is no different than fiat. And it didn't matter to me that you could only print 21 million of them. That really wasn't all that exciting to me. But the thing that I saw today, as I was kind of writing my own definition of money, which I still think is the only definition of money, despite many economists probably disagreeing with me, is the definition of money comes from moneta, which is sort of a Latin word for money, but it comes from the temple of Juno, the goddess Juno. And the goddess Juno's temple, and I'm assuming it was Rome. I actually don't even know. It's embarrassing, but oh, sorry, Siri's trying to talk to me through my watch. Hold on a second. All right, Siri, not talking to you.
Yeah.
Juno's temple happened to be where they minted a lot of the, if not most of the silver denarius, the silver coin of the Roman Empire. And so the word money comes from that temple because people just knew it as the mint.
Hmm.
And so I wrote an article several years ago when I first came in, because it turned out every conversation I had about Bitcoin came down to what you believe the definition of money was, or at least what is money. And to me, it's a very particular thing. And if you don't believe it in the way I believe it, then to me, you're just kind of betting on faith.
Right.
And this is super core, not just to me, but to my app as well. SLictionary is based on information having a value, a definitive value, like a stock or like your house or a piece of art. And it's because of the value of the information that ends up transferring the value to the empty Bitcoin, which don't have any information in it. And those empty Bitcoin is the money part of Bitcoin. And once you kind of see that system, it's hard to unsee it, and you'll never think the same way again. But you'll also understand where Bitcoin's price comes from fundamentally.
So just to clarify, you're referring to like the small amounts of Bitcoin. It could be large amounts too, but the amounts of Bitcoin that are specifically tied to pieces of data in the op return that do not necessarily move liquidly like cash, but instead are.
Let me make this super simple so that you're not confused at all. Okay. What if you're in LA, right? So you have a lot of famous people running around. What happens if every time you see a famous person, you have a marker in your pocket and you get that famous person to sign a dollar bill in your wallet, right? Now you've been in LA for like 10 years and you've seen about 10 movie stars a year, and you've got $101 bills in your pocket to the point where it's starting to get fat in your pocket. And you're still trying to exist. I mean, we're trying to picture a world where you still use cash. I know LA, everything's probably Venmo or Apple Pay now, but let's go back, pretend it's still a cash world. So you're at the diner and you've got $100 bills, $101 bills in your wallet, and you've got Michael Jordan's signature on one, you've got Brad Pitt's signature on another, Jennifer Aniston, just on and on and on. You've got all these actors, and each one of them you've looked up on some autograph site and realized that like Michael Jordan almost never signs his signature, and you have it on a cool dollar bill. It's worth like $1,000, and Jennifer Aniston's, her signature is worth like $500. Each one of these signatures that's worth this big amount of money sits on just $1. Now you got to go buy breakfast at the diner, you and your girlfriend, right? You realize your wallet has no real money left. Everything's got the signature. You've got your $100 wrapped in the rubber band, and that's your kind of special. It's like your autographed dollar bills, and it's worth $100. Like you could hand it to the waitress, and if she says your meal is between you and your girlfriend is $96 because you went crazy at the diner, you would have it. It's in your wallet. But the problem is you have to give her one of the dollars with Michael Jordan's signature on it, or maybe, the president of the United States or something. And those are worth way more than the dollar. Now the cashier is going to accept your dollar with the signature on it, but you don't want to spend that.
No.
So now what if the whole world is like that? Now, instead of it's just your wallet and you're struggling because even though you have $100 in your wallet, you really only have like $3 that don't have signatures on it. So you're kind of broke. So what you do is you go sell the Michael Jordan dollar for $1,000 for someone that will buy the signature. Now you have money to pay the diner, right? And this transfer between somebody that signatures that are worth more than the money that it's sitting on and the dollars that you may have in your pocket after selling Michael Jordan's signature. Now you have $1,000 in money that doesn't have any signatures on it. So that's easily spendable for what it's worth. But in Bitcoin, it's the same thing. When you put information on the chain, first of all, it has to be on some bits. Like it's got to be bitful.
Yeah.
If you put it on these false returns or zero Satoshi outputs or all this nonsense that people are currently using, it could be considered on the chain, but it's really not on the chain. It's deletable information. It's prunable. I think it's section 7, right? Isn't section 7 pruning?
Yeah.
And there's going to, I guarantee it, there's going to be a time when miners and nodes don't make a lot of money. By the way, this is one of those times. Now, they may not do it this time, but right now, Tall is in a precarious position. There's not many other nodes that are doing the data part of BSV, so we are in a bit of a precarious situation. And if they're not making money and unable to raise money, then they got to cut costs. And one of the costs is just maintaining this bloated BSV blockchain with all this nonsense data on it that isn't part of the UTXO set. UTXO set is bitful. It is the money part. It is the part that has Satoshis. Otherwise, I call them bits. I don't know why people call them Satoshis, but that's what the miners must maintain by protocol. They do not need to maintain zero Satoshi outputs or false returns. Those are fun, right?
Yeah. So that's I like that perspective. I want to clarify for anyone who's listening. In our current BSV economy, any of these services, the majority of these services, I'm not certain. Maybe you can tell me if there's one that doesn't. Probably SLictionary is one of them. But the majority of these services, when they attach data to the chain, they're doing it in a way that is not, it's like a zero Satoshi output, right? So it's not actually full, it's not attached to a bit, a Satoshi, right, in this case. So in the future, when the chain is like big and unwieldy and like the cost of maintaining it will be like quite large, and efficiency will be, miners will be incentivized to be more efficient, they will prune that data. And so the data is impermanent, really. And it's sort of inevitably going to get pruned. And so the real value of attaching data to the bits, data to the coin, is to make sure that it's attached at a layer 1 level. Is that?
It's not so much layer 1. It must be bitful. You only need 1 bit, which right now costs pretty much nothing. I mean, to not use a bit is arguably, how do you say it? Like risking your life for no reason. I run a dictionary, and I'm never more running out of right words to say than I am running a dictionary.
Well, but let me ask you,
irresponsible.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. I mean, for something like, if your house deed was on chain, you would certainly want it to exist in a bitful way. But I mean, do you believe that there's room for prunable data on chain?
Oh, plenty.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a million ways to conquer that problem. I know some people think, well, oh gosh, Apple has 1.5 billion shares, and if we put each one of those on a bit, that we're gonna, and then you multiply that times all the stocks in the stock market plus the bond market and the money market, you're gonna run out of bits.
Yeah.
But it's not true, right? I mean, what is $100 bill? Isn't it on the same piece of paper as a $1 bill? But it's 100 of them. You just change the number on the top, right? I mean, you can make a token that sits on 1 bit that represents 1 million of something. It could be 1 million shares of Apple can sit on 1 bit. So it's not hard. You can make change, right?
In that case, are you referring to a fungible token or a non-fungible token?
Well, if you're talking something like shares or money, like central bank digital currencies or stable coins, yeah, you're talking fungible mainly. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, to think that you're going to run out of bits means you kind of don't have any creativity, because it's not that far of a stretch to figure out how to make a system that works rather well where you conserve bits, right? A perfect example, again, is just, when you have you can have $1 million bill sitting on one bit. Now, I wouldn't do that. To me, the money part is sacred. I wouldn't really do that, not even with the central bank digital currency. But for things like shares, definitely, right? You would definitely have 10,000 shares sit on a single bit, because shares are rights, and rights don't really require a par value that's very big. Par value is something you can kind of study up on it. The history of it is pretty poor these days. It would take you a little bit of time to understand what par value means, but the par value is kind of like what it costs to make $1. It's almost like the seigniorage, or the price of just printing up a share is sort of like the par value. Now, there's other ways to really look at it that are kind of more accurate, but the point is this: when you have just a right to something, it doesn't really matter that it's backed by bits. Money should be backed by bits. So a perfect example of a good central bank digital currency would be something like, make 100 bits equal $1, right? And then the dollar just becomes similar to what it used to be when it was backed by silver or gold.
Right.
The dollar, it usually took $35, and you could exchange it for 1 ounce of gold. And in this case, or even prior to that, prior to the age of paper money, $1 was just a silver 1 troy ounce coin, right?
Right.
And in the future, maybe not in the near term central bank digital currency future, but in the far term, the people, us, will demand a hard-backed currency. Even if it's a nation or central bank digital currency, we get a vote, right? We get to decide. And when we're angry, we're roaming around with pitchforks and torches, angry that the government has this bullshit central bank digital currency or fiat or whatever the nation has, and they're looking to change to something to please us, the people, because we're fed up. They're going to use a fully backed currency at some point. That will happen, I hope, in my lifetime, because I think it's a huge problem that we have unbacked money, that we have fiat. But I think it will happen not long after my lifetime, if it takes that long.
Well, yeah, I agree it's a huge problem. But my question is, let's say we end up with 100 bits to $1. What happens when the Fed wants to print more money, or has to pay interest on its own debts, right? Because that would basically freeze the money supply at the moment of that inception, right? That would freeze the money supply. Yeah. Do you think that there are, potential issues with that? And because that basically means that the government could never print another dollar ever again.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to look at history on this question. And the answer is that there are both examples, right? So when you have a hard money and you need to have a war or raise money for a deflationary collapse to maybe hire some people, similar to the Depression or any other collapses in human history, you typically raise debt. And debt means that the government is beholden to the people who buy the debt. And that is the way it should be. The king should have to ask the, nobles, hey, I want to fight this war, and I just want to spend, $40 trillion beating up on the Russians or the Ukrainians or whatever you want to beat up on. And the people are going to tell you, I'm sorry, I'm not financing that. Or, hell yeah, go do that, because if you don't do that, they're going to come and confiscate all of our wealth and our businesses and everything else, and maybe even enslave us. So it acts as a check and a balance. But what I would say to you is this: if the world works in cycles, and I think this cycle of fiat is soon going to end. Maybe not soon, meaning like 24 months from now, but soon, meaning again, like within my lifetime, fiat should go away. We're not that far away from a deflationary collapse followed by a hyperinflationary period.
Right.
I would say we're right in that zone right now, and that whole cycle of deflation, collapse plus hyperinflation takes 10 years, right?
The signs seem to be pointing that way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, right now we're in the deflationary collapse period. It's just a question of when that bottoms out. And when it bottoms out, they're going to want to print a lot of money, and the economy is going to be very small. There's going to be lots of unemployment, and those are ideal conditions for hyperinflation. It's not going to happen the way everybody thinks it's going to happen. Everybody expects this hyperinflationary period to happen immediately. Everybody's wondering why gas prices are not at $10 a gallon right now. They're at they're about to go back below $3, which is something I paid for gas in 2004. So it turns out that the major flow is actually deflationary right now, and it's proven out in the cryptocurrency prices, which in the last year are down around 80%. The good ones are only down 60, and the bad ones are down 99%. And you're seeing it in the stocks. I mean, I think Facebook is down 75%. Tech companies are firing. I mean, Twitter they basically proved that you can fire 90% of your workforce and make the product better. I mean, imagine being in Silicon Valley right now, running one of these ginormous startups and looking over at Twitter like, wow, you just fired 90% of their people, and they seem to be getting things done faster than they did before. I wonder if we can do that, right? And they're already firing 30% of their workforce at Snapchat and Netflix and some of these bigger places. And Elon is based. I mean, whether you like him or not, I don't really care. But I mean, he's just setting an example, saying you can do this. You can fire a lot of these people, and that's not a good sign for the economy, right? That's basically saying that a lot of people that have a paycheck are not earning
it. But it could be a good thing for Bitcoin, right? Because I think one thing that I think we're seeing is that you're seeing the influence of individual people and their ability to build things with smaller teams rising significantly, right? So you go from, in the 90s and early 2000s, you go from like these tech geniuses who build something in a college dorm room. And here we are now, and like so many of the products that you see on the internet were built by like less than 10 people, 5 people, small teams. And I think that's, and you see this in every industry. There's more of a, I mean, in the creative industries, there's the outgrowth of a cult of personality, which is, maybe like influencers, right? One man business. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I think for Bitcoin, it's a great thing, because Bitcoin allows, like, if you know what you're doing, you can build a product in Bitcoin for, like you can build it with no funding, with no, teammates, whatever. So it's an interesting thing. It's like this hyper efficiency that's in the Bitcoin economy appears to be moving towards like individuals being able to make like huge impacts and stuff. So I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, for the larger world, it's pretty funny. I just, my comment on it is I always thought it was hilarious, and I'm very glad that all these people are getting fired, not for their, not for their discomfort or whatever. That's sad. But I just think the culture of Silicon Valley seems to like enjoy the idea of like hundreds of thousands of employees working on these services that very, to me, don't need that many people. Like they're just not, they don't require this army of people in like middle management positions and all that. So it's a bit, I think that the fact that that's coming to an end, this era of like the Silicon Valley, duchies, where people are, they just, so I that's something I like to see. I think that's a step in the right direction. It's positive movement for me personally.
Yeah, it's all right there in that movie Office Space, right?
Yeah, there you go. Totally.
So what was it? What would you say you do here?
You're right. Right. Yeah, and I think they're like the idea that these people have to find something that they're actually useful at, right? I mean, I think like my generation, in my generation now, the smartest people are generalists, right? Because the era of the specialist is like coming to a close. Now, if you're one in a million in your field, that's great. But generally speaking, most people are interested in having like multiple streams of income from different areas, playing one game here, another game here, sort of diversifying your cultural output, your social capital. And yeah, so like the idea of just working at Facebook and making 200K a year for, not providing much use to anybody, I think that that dream is fading out, and now it's time for everybody to figure out what value they really give, to the people around them and the society writ large. And I mean, to me, it's funny because there are so many things today that can make you pessimistic and cynical. But once you understand Bitcoin, they're actually very optimistic and sort of seem to be accelerating the movement towards Bitcoin, and that is to me very hopeful. So I think that sort of thing. Um, like I have a couple of friends that have all been fired from their San Francisco jobs, and they told me that like half of their friends are laid off, and that's sad. But like deep inside, I'm like, we've never been closer to hyper Bitcoinization.
Yeah, I mean, a perfect example is just the dictionary product literally allows people to do a tiny amount of work and potentially get paid forever on it. If you write a great definition and I do my job and I get into schools, and not just our little school, but we keep pushing into schools and getting kids to use the product because it's the best dictionary platform on the earth right this second. We've only worked on it 1 year, and we don't have all the words in the dictionary, right? So we're not really a complete product in that sense, but our platform is revolutionary. There is none better. I don't care how much money Oxford English Dictionary gets for subscriptions or how much advertising
Yeah.
Merriam-Webster's gets. I don't care how many donations Wiktionary and Wikipedia get. We have the best platform right now, today. All that it takes for us to beat up on these people is contributions from experts, people who know something well. They want to define a word. If you're good at jujitsu, then you should be defining Kimura. If you're good at cooking, then you should be defining souffle, not an English professor in Cambridge, Massachusetts. You, the people, are going to define your world because you're the experts, and you compete with each other, which is the major aspect of this thing. And it should be not unfamiliar to you, right? That your generation is competing like no other, right? I mean, we went from 50 years ago, if you wanted to find a wife or a girlfriend, right, in your little town, everybody knew you already. So like really hard to change a reputation in a town. But in my generation, it was more like a bar scene, right? You could go out and meet a few new people that weren't part of town or go live in another city, and people were more mobile. In your generation, it's like you have everyone, right? It's like you're in the hot or not thing where you're swiping left, right, and just nailing the like button on every single girl you like, and they're doing the same thing. And when there's a match, there's a match, but you're getting a lot more looks, but also the competition's much higher, right? So what's interesting is we're only introducing something that your generation is used to, which is small jobs, uh, big amounts of pay for those small jobs, lots of competition. You have to be good at it. You have to know your stuff, right? If your main thing is, fishing, you can probably make a lot of money from defining fishing terms, lore, for instance, but you're not probably going to be the guy everybody wants to listen to in baseball or medical or biological science, right? How are you going to define those words? You're not. But if you can find 100 words, right? And I think a good definition in our dictionary after 10 years, we'll be able to make $1,000 a year. That means that if you focus on your expertise and you define those terms early when we're still young, when we're big, I mean, you can retire on that. That's like having a pension. Like,
Yeah. I mean, this what you touched on, I think, is like this is like the sort of magical game of Bitcoin is that every and first off, I think one thing that's really good to touch on is you'll notice that in Bitcoin, the most successful and the most interesting businesses so far have been platforms. They've been structural agoras, right, for people to enter and basically giving them the platform to be creative, to show what they're all about, and then to, as a result of that, because of the nature of Bitcoin, be able to make something with low effort that can generate 1,000 times what you put into it, right, over time or whatever. This is true for every single good business on Bitcoin. And the ones that don't do that, they die out pretty quickly. And I think it's really interesting. Like I think when you guys first launched, like the first week, I defined jazz, right, which is a
oh, is that right?
that's
Let me
right.
look that
It's a
up.
specialty of mine, and I define jazz, and I think my definition is still up there. Until some new cats come into BSV, I'll be the top, and I think it's really cool. I also just want to commend SLictionary because I think it touches on something that I really believe is a big part of the coming paradigm, which is just metadata writ large, like all kinds of metadata, and I'm specifically coming from the world of music, where I think that the crime of the streaming services these days, I mean, there's a few, but the biggest one to me is that you no longer get to sort of see the names, the faces, and the people and the time period behind music when you look at it on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, right? I mean, you used to, when you opened a CD or a vinyl sleeve, there's a big list of credits, all the personnel, all the what cities it was recorded in, who did this to that, and all the players, all that sort of stuff. And I think that is like very valuable information, not only because if that's not public information, then there's a lot of screwy things that happen in this business. But you know, it's a thing that has sort of gotten lost in that particular paradigm that we're living in, and something like SLictionary to me, I think represents a sort of a return to the valuing expertise, right? So a book or a definition or whatever. And I just want to say one thing that I love about SLictionary is that you can define any string of characters. So you don't have to find a word. You could type in, your name and define it and say, I'm this guy, like you can type in anything and define it. And I think that's goes beyond even a dictionary, right? I mean, like that's sort of it's this metadata platform. So yeah, that's what I like about it.
Are you able to see my screen? I did share
Yeah,
screen.
I can share it here. Go back to where you're at. Yeah.
All right. So this is your definition of jazz. I got to tell you, you are good. I don't say this to everyone. I'd probably be embarrassed if it was a bad definition right now, but
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is a hell of a definition. This is a perfect example of our app.
Awesome.
When you read this paragraph, you can tell that you really know what you're talking about. I would have to read 3 books to be able to write this paragraph right here. This looks like a tiny amount of work, and for you, it probably was. For me, this would be a massive undertaking for me to write about big bands and subgenres and bebop, even to know what the hell bebop is, to even put that in the definition. And this is my point, right? You probably wrote this from your head. You probably know exactly who these people are if you know jazz pretty well.
That's the Duke Ellington Sacred Orchestra playing in Harlem, 1956. Yeah.
Right. And someone who really is into jazz can appreciate this definition. And then the best part of it all is the signature. I mean, not the best part of it, but one of the really cool aspects is the fact that your signature's on this thing. And we can even put a sponsor at the bottom, a signature of the sponsor, such as I used to go to the Downtown Jazz and Blues Club in Orlando, Florida. When I was in the Navy. I loved going there. In San Diego, there was another place, I'm trying to remember it, in Pacific Beach that I would go to for jazz and blues. And those places could sponsor this bounty for, say, $100, attract a bunch of people to compete to define this against you. And who knows, maybe yours would still be on top because you have a little bit of first mover advantage. But the point is, these businesses can put this stuff in here and it's not advertising, but they just get their name on it, right? It's like, when you played little league and you had a wooden bat and it had your favorite baseball player on it, that just makes the bat a little special, and it makes the definition special as well. And,
awesome.
If people know you in jazz, I mean, I'm not in the jazz world, but I know Jackson Lasky is and some other people. Luke, the guy who does our podcast song, Luke Wensklis, he's a organist, also into jazz. And, these people in the community can recognize things that I may not see, but you would see. And this is a really good definition, actually. I'm glad you pointed this out because I didn't even know this was in here.
Yeah, I've done a couple, but yeah, thank you for saying so. And yeah, anytime somebody looks that up, right, I get a cent, right, or some fraction.
I just paid you right now. I just hit the light bulb right here.
Oh, great!
And for your picture, which really does it for me, and boom, you're paid. You'll get it on Friday. We pay on Fridays because we're still batch paying. We don't want to pay instantaneously because we do have some really big payouts for bounties, and we like to kind of inspect those just to make sure our math is right and all that kind of thing. But eventually, it'll all be real time.
So have you taken a look at all at what Daniel Krawitz is doing with the Proof of Work company and Boost Proof of Work?
I have, but probably not a good topic for me because I'm not going to be able to shed a ton of light on it, or I won't.
Okay,
So,
we should discuss that. Okay, I'll give a little primer here, and we can discuss it.
If you want to talk about it, it's a good topic for maybe us to talk about privately, I would say.
Yeah, sure.
But not a great topic for me to do on the podcast, let's say.
I hear you. I think, I mean, I'll just say that I believe the goals of both of you are aligned. I mean, in terms of what you're trying to do, and to particularly the importance of good information and the value of good information and how to value good information. I think that these are super, super aligned for both of you. So I do hope we can have that conversation. I think that's awesome.
Here's something I want to show you because I know hyper Bitcoinization, which I think is in SLictionary, by the way. I'm not sure who defined it, but I see it as slightly different than maybe you guys would define. I feel like the hyper Bitcoinization is talking more or less about how when everybody buys Bitcoin, it's going to go up really fast and all this stuff. And there's a speculative aspect to that that is certainly true, and actually can be a great tailwind for some of the businesses and people who are in Bitcoin and saw it first and that whole thing. And that's exciting. But to me, the real hyper Bitcoinization comes from things like putting your definition of jazz onto some bits and having it sit there and earn an income. And that income makes it so that you don't give those bits up, right? And and when you do that math, and the math is not hard, right? It's the same math that I gave you in the earlier example of you're not going to spend the dollar bill with Michael Jordan's signature on it because it's worth $1,000 or $500, but you will spend a regular dollar, right? Now, if there's your friend's signature is on a dollar bill, that's not really worth anything, right? I mean, it's your friend. It might have sentimental value to you, but in a pinch, you'll probably spend that dollar and just ask your friend to sign it again, right? Maybe if your friend's dead, you wouldn't. But you see what I'm saying? Like Michael Jordan's signature is worth $500. You're not spending that on a bagel or a donut, right?
Right. Yeah.
And the same thing applies here. So if I don't know if you can still see my screen.
Yeah, it's up.
But these are the tokens, right? So this is our test site. So I could show you the real tokens that SLictionary owns. They own a few.
Is this feature live? This is a live feature right now?
This is live on the main site. Yeah.
Okay, this is new to me. This is pretty cool.
These tokens are on the test version. So because I'm going to redeem one for you to show you what it looks like. But these are all kind of fake words. Z big NFT is just sort of like a French accent and saying the big NFT.
Yeah.
But what you can see here is that there's lifetime earnings and 2022 earnings. And of course, every year there'd be earnings below that. But this particular NFT was created this year. So it's only going to have earnings this year and it's going to be equal to the lifetime earnings. But what you can see here is a progression of income like these tokens are little micro businesses. So if you own the big NFT and people are clicking on it, this number goes up. There's the hyper Bitcoinization, right? This NFT that you own gets hit every day, 100 times a day. You're making $1 a day, 365 days a year on average. That's hyper Bitcoinization because when we press the redeem button here to see if we want to delete this thing or keep it, it's going to tell you how many Bitcoin it sits on. So if you look at this document right here, this is, do you want to delete this Bitcoin, this token? This token sits on 28 cents. Okay. So if your lifetime cash flow is 0, like it says for this token, well, then maybe this token's not worth anything. You'd rather free up the 28 cents. So you hit the redeem button here. If I hit this redeem button, it's going to delete the definition out of my dictionary and it's going to return to your wallet 28 cents. Now, would you do that if this definition was averaging making $365 a year?
Yeah, probably not.
Right? So what's going to happen to this 28 cents then?
It's going to sit there for you. It's going to park the NFT.
It's hodled, right?
Yeah.
It's stuck. It's stuck like JJ Astor bought 100 acres of land north of VC Street in Manhattan, right? Yeah. And he took the farm down, it's a farm, and eventually you can turn it into many city blocks. But at the moment, he's got to decide: is this thing worth more as 28 cents, or is this thing worth more for the income it's generating, right? And that decision is what makes BSV go up for real. That is the real hyper Bitcoinization. That's the fundamental reason why the price goes up.
Right. Well, okay. I mean, that's excellent. And I love that. just to clarify, I don't actually think you and, like, let's say the Jack Lew viewpoint or the Daniel Kraywitz viewpoint, I don't think any of these are at odds with each other, to be honest, because the hyper Bitcoinization that I know is not just like everybody turns their dollars into Bitcoin. The idea is that people enter into the Bitcoin economy because they see something of value like this, and then they use the Bitcoin to get more Bitcoin, right? With the potentiality of earning a shit ton of Bitcoin. And then they don't ever leave the Bitcoin economy. Because let's put it this way, right? Let's say I get my Jazz NFT, which cost me like what, 2 cents to put up there. And now it's generating like $1 a day in Bitcoin, right? There and at a certain point, there's no reason why, even after 365 days, there's no reason why I would turn that into 365 US dollars, because I could take that 365 dollars of Bitcoin, and now I can go buy a very expensive definition on SLictionary, or I could go take it to Twitch and get something there, do this and that. So it's like the idea being that like eventually the Bitcoin economy becomes so like sticky, and you want to stay in it, and you keep getting drawn closer to the black hole at the center, which is my favorite image of what Bitcoin really is that you just keep getting drawn to the black hole in the center, where all you want to do is acquire more Bitcoin, right? By doing the least amount of work. That keeps everybody in, and that, along with what you're saying about the fundamentals and all that, is what makes hyper Bitcoinization happen. I think everybody has a bit of a different view on what it is, but I'll tell you this, because I want to bring everybody together, because I'm seeing so much ingenuity in every corner. Something that Jack and I talked about a while ago is that his what he said was that the hyper Bitcoinization app will do two things. It'll allow a person who maybe has no Bitcoin to start earning Bitcoin very quickly, right? Or at least to have a very low cost entry and start earning Bitcoin. Like the fluidity of earning Bitcoin, it needs to maximize that. And then it also prioritizes good information. And I mean, here we are. SLictionary, I think, sits right in the middle of understanding that those two things are extremely important. And I'd say Daniel's work and the other guys at Proof of Work Company with Boost and all that also prioritizes those two things, although perhaps a little less on the earning side. But so yeah, these are, and I completely agree. This is what Bitcoin has that no other crypto or whatever will ever have, is the ability to be sticky in the Bitcoin economy while also having this, this like information, like this natural selection of information.
I want to be a little more poignant, though. I agree with what you're saying, but I think there's an important distinction here where when you go to look at these two items you have here, right? These are two definitions for Zanzibar. And again, this is on our test site, so these definitions don't really mean anything. If I was on the main site, they would. I think we own the 3 or 4 definitions for woman, which is a very highly controversial word. Yeah. And I don't want to redeem those because they're all written by people that I think did a pretty good job. And I want them to continue to earn money. So I'm not going to delete them. But these two I can mess with. But if this is a realistic situation here and you're looking at these two definitions, both of these are going to sit on about somewhere between 25 and 40 cents, sometimes even $1. And you have to make this decision. Is this definition any good? It might be ranked 17th in the great definition game, and there's no reason to keep it. So why take up room on the blockchain with 40 cents or $1 worth of Bitcoin when you could just have it in your pocket and spend it? Or you could, hodl it or whatever. Right. But the other one that sits on 40 cents, if it's generating $10 a year, if it's even generating 20 cents a year, you hold on to it, right? Now you're taking up space on the blockchain, but it's like your butcher, your baker, your candlestick maker's taking up space on the island of Manhattan. It's not a waste, right? Just because the land's really valuable to other people doesn't mean that your butchery or your restaurant isn't making a ton of money taking up that space on the island of Manhattan. It's the same thing here. These definitions are taking up blockchain space. I don't know if you know this, but I think we're the only app that actually uses Bitcoin. I mean, when I say that, I mean, we're the only app that stores data on the Bitcoin and takes up space. And therefore, we're really the only app that adds fundamental value to the price of Bitcoin. Because when you have to hodl this 40 cents, because it's generating you real income. I mean, isn't this what DeFi was about? But the difference with DeFi was it was a fraud because you were just getting paid by someone minting more of the currency, right? Oh, you had $100, now you have 120. It looks like 20% interest until you realize they're just money printing. They're doing the same thing that they're doing in fiat with the dollar and the yen. It's baloney. It's a fraud. Yeah. You're not really earning interest. Where's the interest coming from? In real life, when you earn interest, you own a house or you're lending money that ends up in a house at the bank, and the bank pays you interest based on that business making money or that house charging rent or that apartment building charging rent. That's real yield. That's real interest. This DeFi crap that's been going on for the last 2 years, it's not real interest. It's not coming from an economic place. This is interest being paid on your token. This is a cash flow generating token. Show me anywhere, not just in BSV. Show me anywhere in all of the crypto world where an NFT is generating cash flow other than right here. These are the best NFTs in the world right here. Now, you may believe that, we're not going to win or something, but what I would tell you is this: either we win and we become the Wikipedia of the future and everybody owns their own data and you write up the article on Jazz or Miles Davis or whatever you want to do and earn money from that, or you continue to think that Wikipedia is going to basically not hire anyone, not pay anyone, and continue to have articles and words that are abrogated and made by people that will change the data anytime they want, change the definition anytime they want, right. Write all negative articles on Craig, whatever dirty stuff they want to do, which we've already seen. It's not like I need to tell you, right? You've seen it all happen already, and you're just going to see more of it if we don't go to this route. If we don't give people control of their data, then someone's going to have central control. And that's what we're changing. And I would say this to you: if you're not about our app, great, find one that's doing it better. But this is the future, right? This is real DeFi. This is real own your own data. This is real data on chain. This is the real app, man. This is it. Now, I'm not saying we're going to be the only one, right? We're not going to do music and we're not going to do food and we're not going to do a zillion other things. Right now, we're doing dictionary. And to me, it's a super important thing because I think language is really super important and interesting. But language has always been part of the people. It's always been owned by the people. The president of the United States, the president of Wikipedia, the president of Merriam-Webster's dictionary has never in their lives decided what a word means, ever. They are not
except for Kofefe. That's the one time.
Yeah, what is it? Yeah, that president.
But, so I believe I fully believe in SLictionary. I want to try to hone in on this idea because the I mean, there's a couple things to speak on there. I want maybe can kind of dig at what the idea of like real estate on the blockchain. I think is a pretty interesting one because it seems like everybody kind of understands that a bit differently. There is a limit, right? We have 21 million bitcoins, 1 million bits per Bitcoin. Am I right? So
100 million, yeah.
100 million, sorry, 21, whatever it is, bits total ever possible. So there is a limited supply of those bits. And you are particular about the fact that when you park an NFT on a bit in the layer one, I think the layer one is important because most NFTs today, like on the Run protocol and all that, are all layer two, right? So when you park data at the layer one, that takes up real estate on the blockchain that, you know, makes every other bit more scarce. And
not only that, it does a great thing for our dictionary because look, let's say this definition is really good for Zanzibar. It's made a bunch of sats, right? So it's earning its income. It's doing the DeFi thing. You're earning real rent on this informational property. This one here to the right says 0 lifetime earnings. It's doing horribly. And when you press the redeem button and you look, and it says, it'll pop up in a second, it'll say it's sitting on 26.59 cents. It's not earning anything. It's just wasting space. So I'm going to redeem this and then go write a bunch of stuff on Twitch or play some POW chess or play Haste with the 26 cents, right? Maybe with 26 cents, I can get on the leaderboard on BSV 2048 or Haste and make some money that way. So this 28 cents isn't doing me any good. So I'm going to take it elsewhere. So I hit redeem and boom, I get money in my wallet here that I can then move somewhere else. That's going to do good.
Let me ask you, the redeemable token substrate you got there, is that tied directly to that amount of Satoshis, or is this tied to like one bit, one Satoshi? Or is that directly one-to-one how many Satoshis it is?
No, it's 20. In this case, it was about a quarter or 25 cents worth of Satoshis. So
it is directly correlated to the amount of Bitcoin. It's not.
Yeah, so that was probably like 150,000 sats that it sat on.
Well, so that, I mean, yeah, it is great because there's even the idea that if in a hyper Bitcoinization world, the purchasing power of Bitcoin is unbounded, right? Basically never stops. So you could redeem it for 26 cents today, or tomorrow it's going to be worth even more. And the day after it's going to be worth even more. So, I mean, it's an interesting game there because then it's like, yeah, okay, this thing is doing nothing, but it's also becoming more valuable every single day, every single minute.
I call it information hodling. Instead of hodling just a Bitcoin, right, and hoping that the price goes up because everybody uses the hell out of it, you're holding a lottery. You're holding it a free option on, hey, I'm going to still hold this Bitcoin, but this time it has a piece of information on it that can be rented, right? It's like, would you rather hold a house and hope the value goes up, or would you rather hold a house and rent it and collect the income and the house can still go up?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, no sane person would hodl a house and have nobody live in it. It's not even good for the house. First of all, it's a little bit different in that respect, but you would rent it out while you wait for the number to go up. So it's the same thing here. It's exactly the same. And this is why I'm telling you that people aren't thinking about it straight, right? If your Twitch is brilliant, right? Like Ruth Heisman, hope I'm saying that right. She wrote that wonderful tweet on Twitter about you can either get into Bitcoin when Bitcoin is $50, $500, 5,000, whatever. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
It's probably the most famous BSV tweet.
Right.
And that thing's worth money. right? Because people keep referring to it and probably will referring to it. The mistake that maybe she made is that thing should be on the blockchain, right? She should have put that in SLictionary, because there people can keep liking it, and every time she gets a like, instead of people complaining, oh, did the like go away, did it stay, who cares? Every time she gets a like, she gets 0.7 of a penny. So,
well, let me just play devil's advocate for a second, because first off, I agree, because I somebody elucidated to me that Twitches are not really fully on chain and all this stuff, and I'm not. I like Twitch, but I don't think Twitch is gonna be around forever, type thing. However, there is something that what Twitch is doing is also is like part of the equation, because your time frame here is very long.
of course,
You're building something that is future oriented, right?
yep.
But there's the flip side of that is that Twitch managed to sell 10,000 Bitcoins worth of NFTs today. And
Yeah.
there will likely, especially, if the next year goes like we all know it will, there will probably never be a time in the future where anybody is going to be able to sell 10,000 Bitcoins worth of anything, for probably, if ever, right? So I think that's like the flip side of it today. Like, Twitch could really just disappear today because they've already earned what they have, and in the future they'll be, positioned to do that. Now, the idea of, again, your product, SLictionary, is very future oriented, and it is brilliant. And then there's the other flip side, so my flip side with that is, there's like what the Jack Loos of the world are sort of on, is that give people the ability to make 10,000 Bitcoins today, and that future happens much quicker, right? I think that's what what is the idea here with that.
Yeah, look, I get the idea. I mean, you still have to pay your employees, and people need to eat and all that kind of stuff. So it's not as simple as that. But yeah, I tend to agree if you can hodl, right? But hodling is just another form of saving money. I mean, if you can save money and you invest it in something, whether it's Bitcoin, a stock, or whatever, yeah, you can get rich. That's pretty much the number one way to get rich, is to have more savings that earns you money back than you're working for, right? 'Cause everybody has to pay the bills. But I guess what I'm saying is, these things that we're holding that are just the Bitcoin, again, it's like holding a house and not renting it out. Like, why not invest in something that can give you an income, or give you an income while it's being fun? I guess what I would say is, if I was Twitch, I would put all of the tweets or Twitches onto an actual bit or more, and force people to decide whether they want to delete it or redeem it for money, or whether they want to keep it because it's like Ruth Heisman's tweet, right? It's going to maybe go up in value because it earns money, it earns rent, or that it has artistic value, right? Not everything has to have a cash flow. Some things are artistic. I think, someday we'll get Craig maybe to define Bitcoin, and that will be kind of like Michael Jordan's signature on a game-winning basketball, right? That'll be something that people want to own because it's a one-of-one NFT. It will have some cash flow, probably some pretty decent cash flow if it's Craig's definition of Bitcoin, but it'll have an artistic value that far exceeds the cash flow. And that to me is a really cool NFT where, sure, I mean, if you own a picture or a piece of digital art, you're kind of hoping that the artist becomes famous, that you've bought a Banksy for $100 and that Banksy ends up being worth millions. And I totally get that. I'm not good at it, but I get it, right? I mean, the Barnes Museum, the guy who built it, here in Philadelphia is my next door neighbor. So I don't completely misunderstand art, but what I'm saying is that there's more than just art. There's this cash flow involved where you can hold information and have it generate money for you and be art at the same time. And so what I would like to see, if you really want hyper Bitcoinization, you need to start putting things on the chain. You need to start being bitful. You need to start actually using the blockchain, not the near-term blockchain where your NFTs on this zero Satoshi thing that may or may not be saved, and you have to kind of beg people to save it, and they may or may not. It's up to them. Well, that's not really what Bitcoin's all about, right? Bitcoin's about, hey, my stuff is on one set. I've put an entire movie, a 3-hour movie, on one bit, and I don't care what happens in the world. That node, in fact, all of the nodes have to maintain that one bit. It's part of the protocol. If they don't, then they get sued and they get run over by the other miners, right? If they don't include, if I, so help me God, if I put my grandmother's home movies on one bit, 3 hours of movies on a single bit, and I move that from my wallet to my grandchild's wallet so that they can have it, and the blockchain ignores that because they're like, no way are we maintaining 3 gigabytes to hold your stupid little bit, and you're only going to move it once a lifetime every time someone dies. To hell with you. That's not profitable. Tough beans. That's what they're signed on for. That is their job, and so they must do it.
Okay, so I mean, that's a great argument, and so my question is to get like a somewhat technical. Hold on, let me. Yeah, so to get somewhat technical, what do you think is stopping people? Because I don't think anybody really disagrees with that. What's stopping people? Is it token protocol related?
Near-termism. Near-term wanting, kind of what you just said, like, let's make a bunch of Bitcoin and hold it. And if we put things on 1 bit or 100 bits or whatever the dust limit was, that's going to cost us money, right? So let's not do it. Let's save the money because we can put it on 0 bits and it won't cost us anything. It's a cost. When we put definitions on the chain and they sit on 1 million Satoshis, that has a cost, right? That's 28 cents that didn't go into our pockets. It's technically still in your pocket, right? If you're using SLictionary and you define the word or you put up the word bounty, we're actually giving it back to you. It's kind of like a 10% discount on what we say we're charging you. So when you put up a $10 bounty on word bounty and you want to inspire a contest of creativity to define violin, right? And you get a bunch of violinists, whoever is going to define that, and they all compete. Every definition they enter in that contest becomes your NFT. So let's say 10 people enter the contest. You now own 10 NFTs for the word violin. So you're like running the table on that word. You've practically monopolized it. Chances are with 10 people competing for that, I mean, at least 2 or 3 of those definitions are going to be pretty good. 7 of them, you might delete. You might redeem them to get back the Bitcoin that they're sitting on. But what we do is if you put that bounty up for $11, we take $1 off and we substrate all those 10 definitions with the dollar. So in that case, each definition would go on a dime. If only 2 people competed, then we would put each definition on 50 cents because there'd be $1 substrate, 2 definitions divided by, you get 50 cents each.
I see. Yeah.
And that is what forces you to make that economic decision. We want that economic decision because we don't want crappy definitions in our dictionary. So we make you pay, we make you sit on Bitcoins to force you to say, do I want the Bitcoin or do I want the income stream? right? And it's the exact same decision when you're buying real estate. Do I want to rent the house, buy the house and rent it out? Or do I just want to hold on to the money? And maybe there's a better opportunity somewhere else. And that's what we're talking about here.
All right. Well, that's awesome. I think that's it's great. I mean, like from my perspective, this first off, this aligns a lot with what I'm trying to do with my record label, right? Because we're basically going to be essentially doing something very similar, which I'd love to talk to you about. But structurally, we're using Relay, so we're using run tokens and all that, and so I'm gonna take a look at all this and give it a good think.
It's not applicable in every business, by the way. I mean, music may only require the microtransactional part of Bitcoin, right? You may
what we're trying to do, which I've not really spoken about publicly, so this is great. We're an hour and a half in, but what we're trying to do is, and you got to understand, this is something, at least from this is, I've been thinking about for years, how can Bitcoin change the paradigm of the music industry, because music is it's an inherently like exploitative business, and especially from the label side.
The Hollywood paycheck, they call it in LA, right?
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, it's really crazy. I can't even, there's so many layers to it. It's changed like the industry that I've been born into and worked in. It's very different from how it was even 10 years, like even the year I was born in the 90s, like very different from how it is now. So yeah, but I mean, it's another example of something that's hyper evolving, and as a result gets us closer to Bitcoin. So that's great. But yeah, like my idea here is that when you buy into us, we're not selling you music. You're going to buy into us, the label, and it's going to be something closer to like a Patreon, but it's only a one-time payment. And once you get that NFT, that membership into the club, which is scarce, right? Then you're going to get everything we do for free as airdrops. And so those NFTs are going to sort of naturally accumulate value based on what we do. And then on top of that, we have a fungible token system that's going to basically contractualize the relationship that the artists have with the label. So now it becomes a truly, for the first time in ever, an artist-owned label. And the audience gets to, sort of play a role in that. So yeah, the idea being here that like your initial entry into our ecosystem by purchasing that NFT, now you are, getting something out of it, whether it be the music and the art itself, or, the ability to kind of redeem the products you get to earn more of the internal token, all this sort of stuff. So yeah, I think everything is kind of moving in that direction, and and we're even more so doing a similar system for the games that I'm building and all that stuff too. So I fully see the vision, and I think it's great. I think we need people to yeah. So like from my bird's eye view, I see every major entity in BSV like ticking all these boxes in their own way. The surprising thing is that when you zoom out and you really take a hard look at what everybody's trying to accomplish, it's all very much the same thing. Their means are a bit different, but the end result, like the end principle, the first principle, is very similar in all the products. So I think that's really interesting. And I think it does have to do with platforms, with giving people the opportunity to be creative in your platform. Because ultimately Bitcoin is just world's biggest platform for everybody to like help each other and stuff. So yeah, that's great. I kind of want to pivot to some of these topical things,
Yeah, do it.
if we could. So I don't even want to talk about that, but all right, it looks like Sam Bankman-Fried has been arrested in the Bahamas. Breaking news. I gotta say, I actually didn't think he would be arrested, or at least not this soon. So I'm happy to be wrong. Although what will come of it, who knows? But do you have any thoughts on the SBF FTX debacle? I mean, I think everybody in Bitcoin, you know, this is just another validation, right, for what people have been saying for a long time. But
No, I think it's more important than that. That is an important aspect, meaning these voices that were considered experts are now actually turning out to be criminals. So that makes our voice much stronger, much stronger. If 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 I say to you, well, no, Bitcoin's this amazing thing, let me describe it, and you go, oh my God, that is amazing. I had no idea that Bitcoin worked that way. That makes total sense, complete logic. And then you go home and you're about to maybe buy some Bitcoin or get into the apps or something, and you read some like hit piece on Craig, and it's like, oh my God, these guys are all frauds. What was I thinking? That all sounded super logical, but I must just be wrong because there's all these people telling me, all these experts that are worth billions of dollars in crypto. Well, Sam said, Vitalik said, Barry Silbert said Craig's a fraud. So, and they have billions of dollars. Like, I'm pretty sure they would be right. I mean, they made all this money. Well, now that doesn't happen. Now you go home and like, well, Sam Bankman-Fried said Craig's a fraud. Well, Sam Bankman-Fried's in jail, right? So that's out, right? There's no more, well, I went home and I looked up that Craig was a fraud. Well, Craig's not in jail, right? He's the one that everybody said was a fraud. And yet we're in like month 12 of people going to jail that are in crypto. And he's not even in the top 10, right? So now our voice is being heard. It's like, well, we told you that Craig is not a fraud. We told you that Sam Bankman-Fried is a fraud, and look, he's in jail. So we're starting to be heard, and that's important. But here's the more important part. BSV has like an ungodly amount of large enemies that I think will not only do anything to psychologically or sociologically suppress Bitcoin, but they're also using money to do it, and they're manipulating the price. And I don't think that this is a surprise anymore, thanks to Sam Bankman-Fried, when we've uncovered all this data that literally says that Sam was manipulating FTT. He was manipulating SOL, Solana. That's how that price got out of whack. Obviously, we all know the stories, and they now seem completely believable, right? They were kind of believable before, but now they're just more believable that BTC was manipulated. I mean, personally, I don't think any version of Bitcoin realistically has gone above $2,000. I mean, in a fundamental or even frenzied way. I think that above $2,000, it's pretty much all manipulation. The 68,000, the 30,000, the Elon Musk, the Sailor, whatever. Above 2,000, I just don't think it happened. I think it's all puff, and that's great. 2,000.
To you, does that mean that the market cap of BTC, realistically, in terms of people exchanging dollars for BTC, does not exceed that $2,000 price? Like legitimate people putting $1 into to get a BTC, that doesn't exceed $2,000 times 18.8 million or whatever.
Roughly correct. Yes. I mean, when you can print your own money called Tether without a Fed, without like government approval, without anything, you're just some private guy, you can make the price go up. And when you can print derivatives and sell people the idea that they're buying Bitcoin, meaning BSV, and they don't really own the BSV because you're on a custodied market, whether it's Bitfinex, OKX, Binance or whatever, or maybe even Coinbase Pro. Probably you can get BSV there too. And you don't
I don't think
really,
you can. I don't think you can.
I'm not so sure about that. I don't know for sure because I'm not a member of any of those things, but like,
Well,
for
I
instance,
do know. I will tell you that on Coinbase, I think this is so hilarious. Like on Coinbase, because I originally got BSV through having BCH on Coinbase, and then it split, right?
right.
And which is why I bought the BCH in the first place. And when I took the BSV off of Coinbase, they actually have a notice on their site that says, "We do not accept or trade BSV. Please don't send your BSV here. We don't want it." It's something to that effect. It's very snarky.
Yes, but remember, there's two classes of investors. Sorry to say, one is kind of accredited big whaley guys and entities and institutions, and the other is the rest of the peasants like us. And
Yeah.
we don't, unless you're in, like, some of these exchanges are just high end exchanges, right? Like if you're on Genesis, which is also kind of bankrupt, Barry Silbert's firm, you can't even like really get an account there unless you're going to put $250,000 in.
Oh,
They don't even want you, right?
right.
It's like Goldman Sachs. You don't go to Goldman Sachs, open up an account with $10,000 in it.
Well, I even heard, isn't
Laugh
like
you.
FTX, you needed to like wire transfer them a large amount to even like get started, right? Something.
I don't know FTX that well, so I don't know. Maybe that was a high end one too, but I
That's
know
right.
Genesis was, and Coinbase and Binance have tiers. So if you're in the normal Coinbase exchange, which it sounds like you were, and that's what I had too. I only had like, somebody sent me a Bitcoin back in 2013 or something, but I just had a regular retail account, and no, I didn't have access to BSV any better than you did. I could unsplit my Bitcoin into the 3 and move it off, and I got the same notice you did. But there's another tier. I don't know if it's called Coinbase Pro or whatever, but there's tiers where if you're an institution like a giant investment firm with $50 billion you're managing, you're not in the same Coinbase that you and I are in, right? They have a different, and they might allow you to buy BSV in that tier. So they say that they don't list BSV, but that doesn't mean that they don't trade it on behalf of some of their customers. That's all I'm saying. But my point is that, going back to Sam Bankman-Fried, we have a lot of enemies, and he's just one of them, one of like 10 big ones. We have Vitalik, we have CZ, we have all the guys at Tether, we have OKX, we have Huobi, or however you pronounce that. Like, there's a bunch. And Barry Silbert, Novogratz, none of these people, none of them want to see real Bitcoin succeed. Because if we succeed, they fail. And so
they're out of business.
Every incentive to put us down. And I think they're using both legal means, although somewhat dirty, and I think they're using outright what would be considered in a standard fair American market price manipulation, which is a felony. It's cheating. It's stealing money. There's no other way to say it. Then it's the same thing as someone grabbing the keys to your car out of your house, driving off with your car, right? I mean,
so you've posted about this a lot. I think even before this Bitfinex short squeeze, mythical short squeeze came into play. So I'd really love to hear what you see, the evidence that you see, in this sort of thing. So because I originally reached out to you because I wanted to talk about this potential, like this idea of this short squeeze. And the idea, for anybody who doesn't know, is that Bitfinex, which is an exchange, I don't know where they're based, but they decided, they basically said that they're closing all margin trading for BSV. And I believe they announced it in November. So this was around the same time that Robinhood also sort of like slowed down with BSV, I think, because now currently you can send your BSV off Robinhood, but you can't send anything to your Robinhood wallet, which is bizarre as well. So Bitfinex said, yeah, we're closing all margin trading. I think you can still send and deposit or whatever, like basic functionality with it. And I think the idea was that this coincided with the growth of the chain being too big. Maybe you can shed some light on it too. My understanding is that the growth of the chain was becoming too difficult or whatever for the nodes at these exchanges to sync to whatever terabytes of block data it is now, which is like hilarious also. But as a result, they all were like, no, BSV, we're stepping back from it. It's too hard to sync, so we're off. And so this sort of happened. And the idea was that they're closing their margin trades, what was supposed to be today, and they just a couple of days ago pushed it back a week. And the idea is that BSV, which is the most shorted crypto out of all of them, by probably many degrees, all of those shorts were looking, they were looking pretty tasty coming up to this December 12th date. And the idea is that people were taking a look at this, and I actually feel like I caught wind of this pretty early too, because it was bizarre. That I love looking at the BSV USD shorts, but I guess the real magic was in the BSV BTC shorts. People were noticing that it's seemingly a lot of BTC was being held as collateral for these shorts. Maybe you can explain better than I can what a short really is. But the idea being that if all these shorts had to close on this day, which is a large amount, that would mean that Bitfinex would have to buy the BSV back, right? From somewhere, I don't know, from their customers, from somewhere else. They would have to buy all the BSV back to close the shorts. And this could potentially lead to this, at least the idea is that this pumps the price of BSV heavy, right? There's been a lot of different perspectives on this. Some people say it appears like most people are saying this is not real. This is not a real event. Some people are saying that it could be a somewhat semi-real event, but I wanted to bring the expert on to touch on this. So, curious, what your thoughts are on that event particularly, and also your general evidence that you've seen for the price suppression in BSV, and how really I'm fascinated in how they do it. Like, how do they really do it?
So if your friend thinks you have a gambling problem and you say, the Super Bowl is coming up, I want to bet on the Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, they're offering 10-1 odds right now. It might be lower than that. I'm not really sure, but your friend thinks you have a gambling problem and you say, I'm just going to take my annual salary and bet it on the Chiefs at 10-1. If I win, I get 10 years worth of salary back. And I think the Chiefs are a great team. And I really think you're going to win the Super Bowl. And your friend's just like, oh my God, Sharish he's gonna gamble away him and his family's next year's worth of income. And I know he's a little tight. And this game is tomorrow. or actually, no, this game is in a month or whatever. And he can handle it for a month, but 2 months later, he's going to be out of money if he loses this bet. And so he has two options, and you hand him the money and go, just make the bet. That's all you have to do is go make the bet. Now, this guy is sort of like Bitfinex, right? This friend of yours. Now, what he's supposed to do is bet the money on the Chiefs. If you win, 10 times that amount comes back and you celebrate. If you lose, it's gone. But your friend's like, he's going to lose this thing. The Eagles are really good. There's 3 other teams that are really good. Like, this is not the right odds. And Sharish is crazy. I don't want him to lose all that money. I'm just going to not bet it. And then when he loses, when the Eagles win the Super Bowl, I'm going to hand him back. Well, I won't handle it all back because I'll have done him a great favor. So I'll just take like 10% for myself. I'll hand him back 90%. And go, look, here's 11 months of the salary back, or 10 months, I guess. And, I'm only going to keep a month, but you're lucky. You're lucky I saved your ass there. And that's sort of like what Bitfinex can do with selling you a derivative rather than borrowing real BSV, selling it and giving you the money. And I could explain how shorting works, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is you didn't really do the real deed. Did I lose you? I think I lost you. All right. Well, maybe I'm the only person on the show. Oh, there we go.
Whoops.
You got everything you need?
Are you there, Jack? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Okay, I don't know what happened there. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay. Got everything squared away?
Yeah, we're good. I think the stream is still going. If anybody can comment, it's still going. That's great. But yeah, sorry to.
Yeah, so similar to that gambling example, what's going on, if you want to manipulate the price, then you simply make it a derivative. When I go to buy from Bitfinex, they go, yeah. We're not going to go find some BSV for you and put that in your account. We're just going to put a marker in the ledger and say, Sharish is on board for 10 BSV at $47. Good for you, Sharish. It's $470 you got on the line. We wish you luck. But they don't actually go out and buy you the BSV. And so the price of BSV does not go up, right? Even though you just bought it. It should go up a little bit, but it didn't because they didn't really buy it for you. Then the next person does the same thing and they do the same thing. And let's say 1 million people go buy each 100 BSV each, and they don't actually buy the BSV, then the price isn't going up, right? But they're telling you, oh, we've entered it in a ledger. So if it does go up someday, then, we'll pay you off someday. But guess what? It's going down. And why is it going down? Because at the same time, they're selling even more. They're just continuing to sell down the stack and saying, oh, you wanted BSV, you wanted BSV. And there's no, they hit all the buyers on the way down the stack. Right? So it goes to 46, 45, 44, up, selling that too, 43, 42, 41, 39, 35, just keeps going down. And all they have to do is write it in the ledger. There's no capital. They're not putting money on the other side. So it's not a real bet, right? Any movie you've ever seen, like a pool movie, like what's it called with Fast Eddie and Minnesota Fats?
Was that Casino?
Yeah, something like that. But I'm thinking of the billiards movies, The Hustler. When they go to bet, what do the two guys do? They each put their $100 either on the table where everybody can see it, or they give it to that old actor. They hand it to him because everybody trusts him, and he's holding the $200. Whoever wins, the trustful guy, third party, hands it to the winner. But everybody can see that he's holding it right in his hand. The money's there. There's no risk of you making a bet and not getting paid. In gambling, this is super important, right? No, when you go to the poker table in the casino, the money is right in the damn middle of the table. You know that you're getting paid if you win that hand. But in finance, we could just write an IOU. The casino can be like, yeah, we see that you're trying to win $1 million in the slot machine, but we don't even have the $1 million in the cage, behind the cage. We only carry $10,000 in the whole casino. So if you win the $1 million by pushing the little rod, we're gonna have to take you to the bank and get money out. But they have to be good for it, right? If you don't get paid, their business is over. But
Right.
the difference here is, if you know you're going to win, if you're the casino and you're like calculating, well, just give me enough pulls on the lever and we'll make it all back. And we're going to go based on that. And therefore, if the person wants to get paid, we just tell them, here's an IOU slip, use this thing for a little while. It's not real money. It's not real BSV, but just whatever. And that's the principle behind naked shorting. It's allowing you to sell an unlimited amount of BSV and take people's money and give them nothing in return. So the people who are buying BSV are not making the price go up. This is happening at Robinhood. This is happening at OKX, which is supposedly where all the BSVs traded. I don't believe it for a second. There's not a chance in hell that the other day, $25 million worth of BSV traded in 24 hours. There's no chance. There is no one trading that amount of money in BSV.
So it's all derivative. Pretty much.
Derivative.
Yeah.
It not only at OKX do I believe it's all derivative, I don't even think it's anybody trading. Like half of the stuff is just like what Solana did to pretend they were doing 100 million transactions a day. It's two servers sending things back and forth like a ping pong ball. It costs them nothing to do. It's just a bunch of numbers on a screen. And the funny thing to me is everybody loves data so much now that people were telling me, oh, well, Solana really is doing 100 million transactions a day. Really? Show me the app. Show me the people. Show me even the bots that are doing 100 million transactions a day and explain to me how those were important, and I will believe you. But when you do the math on 100 million transactions a day, like, Starbucks, the stock only trades like 10,000 times a day. There's not a chance in hell that Sam Bankman-Fried and the Serum Network, or whatever the hell that dog shit was, that's sitting on Solana, was doing even 1 million transactions. I calculated it was no more than 50,000 transactions a day, if it was even 10,000. So it was a big, fat lie. And that is what Sam Bankman-Fried was doing. We know that now because all the data is out, right? FTT was a manipulation. It was a fraud. And
is it correct that they were basically using FTT as an arbitrage token, taking people's money and filtering it through FTT to like pump up something else, like using the FTT? Like, is that accurate? Like FTT was just their internal way to arbitrage like two different assets to like make one go up and the other, go down or go nowhere type of thing. Is that?
If you control 90 or bigger percent of X, whether it's EOS, whether it's Ethereum, whatever, you just have it all hodled somewhere. There's a tiny little bit trading and you're just trickling it out or buying it back in, using leverage on the supposed 90% that has this ginormous valuation, then you could do all kinds of things, right? Because the asset doesn't really trade it doesn't have any real price discovery. It's all locked up. It's a Ponzi. It's basically a forced bubble.
Right.
So the FTT has no real value other than Sam and friends are sometimes spending a little bit of money, sometimes selling a little bit, but they're keeping that price up. And by keeping that price up, their balance sheet looks like it has assets on it. It's like, well, look, we have all this FTT. It's worth $100 a share, and we have 1 billion of them. So that's $100 billion in assets. I mean, those aren't the real numbers.
Yeah.
But
Well, so
basically,
what is the explanation for the FTTs or like Binance Coin or so? Is the explanation that this is represented like our profits go into this token? Is that what they're trying to say? Or
there's all
like,
kinds of different ways they're doing it. Some of them are burning it, like for every trade. I think FTT was supposedly a discount on trading fees. I mean, there's a
so
little,
so FTT is the internal stable coin
yeah. But when
on
you
F.
look at it, when you read the terms of service for the coin, I mean, you'll see all kinds of shocking things in there. I think for the FTT token, if you read the terms of service, it says stuff like, we don't have to redeem this for anything if we don't want to. It's a complete nonsense
Oh,
coin. It's
yeah,
just based on fairy tales.
right,
And so, you know, when it's trading at a price and you're restricting everything and it looks like it has this amazing market cap, it's because it's not really trading. They're not on the open market. Nobody, they can't sell that. That's why he went bankrupt, because he's sitting on these supposed assets that have these ginormous valuations, but he couldn't sell it for that. If he tried to sell the FTT that represented $10 billion on his balance sheet, he'd be lucky to have $10 million, right? And then he's
right.
got all these liabilities. And what are the liabilities? Loans. These are, customers' funds that they're borrowing against. These are other banks' funds. It's real assets on the. They owe real assets and they own nonsense, right? So
Yeah, I
they
mean
went
the
bankrupt.
idea of I'm sorry to interrupt. The idea of FTX having a loaning platform is just insane. I mean, do these other crypto exchanges, to your knowledge, have loaning platforms?
So this is why this going to jail news is a big deal. It's a big deal because Sam is tight with CZ. I mean, I believe CZ not only was one of the biggest investors in FTT, but I believe he was one of the original founding capital suppliers for FTX in the first place.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
definitely. Yeah.
these guys are tight. Tether is super tight with these two entities. So the reason why Sam going to jail is important is the old prisoner's dilemma, right? They're not going to look. Ross Ulbricht was all alone. That was his worst mistake. If there was 10 other, if he had 10 competitors and he knew how to put them in jail too, then Ross would be out right now. But he
Yeah.
was the only one, right? So he's in jail forever. There's no chance for him. But Sam, he could just turn in CZ, just be like, let me show you all the shit that CZ was doing. Oh,
Mm,
you guys were looking to catch Tether? Look, they deleted everything. I deleted everything. Why do you think the guy who took over FTX, who processed Enron after their mistake, was like, this is the most embarrassing set of books I've ever seen? Because it's not because Sam would like to pretend and tell everybody that he was aloof. But in my opinion, what he did, and I can't prove it any more than the government can or the prosecutors, but what I think he did is he just deleted everything. Right? Like, you're not going to keep evidence of manipulating crypto prices, right? I mean, you're going to
right.
delete that the second that the feds are going to come through the door. And so that's what I think he did. That's obviously opinion, but I mean, they didn't find any real records. So do you think he was a $40 billion company and didn't have any records? That's pretty unbelievable.
No, I mean his story is so. I think it's disrespectful, to everybody. I mean, it's
Yeah.
because his story is that the crypto crash of the last couple months was he didn't understand the risk of the crypto crash compared to the like the leverage on the consumer side that they were freely giving out, right? That's his narrative. But what we're getting at is that the reality is that the entire thing was a house of cards to begin with, and the only thing that happened is that the crypto crash just accelerated the falling, right? Um,
Yeah.
I have.
if you read up on, there's some really good podcasts on Tether. Obviously, the New York Attorney General's case revealed a lot of information, and you put that all together, which I have done, but I have not done it to the near extent that some people have. But if you even just catch the general idea of what's been going on there, it's been just price manipulation from the very get-go.
Yeah.
And they couldn't do it without these exchanges like Binance and FTX, and there's others involved. And in my opinion, there's a lot of people going down. And the fact that they caught one of them and that person can sing in the old mafia rhetoric, the rat can spill its beans. I mean, these guys are in trouble. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near a cryptocurrency for the next 2 months while this stuff gets sorted out, because I think today him going into jail is kind of just the first shot across the bow in terms of, he's not going to want to stay in jail. I mean, he's going to want to do whatever he can do to get out of there. And that means more trouble ahead. And look, we haven't even resolved Genesis and GBTC yet. I mean, that dichotomy in price has to resolve itself. And to me, everybody's like, oh, well, GBTC trades at a discount. No, it's the other way around. BTC trades at a premium. I think GBTC is actually the only legitimate thing in cryptocurrency is trading, because it's entirely 100% liquid. What's not liquid is all the Tether that has bought BTC on Binance and OKX and FTX. That's not liquid. So that's the fake price, in my opinion. The real price is the GBTC. And until those two things converge and pick one way or the other, either BTC's going to whatever it is, the 40 or 50% discount, it's going to, let's say, 8,000, or it's going to stay at 16,000. To me, I think if when that resolves itself, it's going to 8. And that means more pain ahead. Now, even if it doesn't, I just wouldn't want to own it until that resolves itself. Even if it resolves to 16 and we say, okay, it turns out the Binance price was the real price and GBTC was at a discount. I'm sorry. First of all, that's just preposterous. Smart people don't give a discount of 40% without a reason. There's a reason why it's discounted. So what I would say to you is that either GBTC is phony and completely collapses everything Barry's ever built, which again is a negative catalyst I don't want to be anywhere near around, or BTC is going to collapse more. And then why would you want to be in cryptocurrency for that? So you've got a guy who's going to rat out other potential crooks. You've got a resolution coming in BTC versus GBTC. And then like the biggest cryptocurrencies exchanges in the world could be next, right? Like, when Sam says, I want to bail something out, like Voyager Digital and all these things, he's not doing that because he's generous. He's not even doing it because he's greedy. He's doing it because he's trying to save them from going bankrupt, which helps him go bankrupt. It's a contagion. It's dominoes effect. Right. And he's got to stop it. So the second that I saw CZ go, oh, well, Sam's not buying anymore, let me put a bid in for it. As soon as I see anybody making a bid on these pieces of junk, my first thought isn't savior or maybe we can all rock it up again. My first thought is, wow, he's in trouble too.
Right. Yeah.
So let's wait. Let's wait and see if he goes down too, because if he goes down, then we lose 2 enemies, and then 3, and then 4, and hopefully we get rid of all of them. But I don't think you have to get rid of all of them. I think this Bitfinex thing, where they're getting rid of the shorting, it could, maybe it's not an indicator that if it's 0.5% of BSV's outstanding shares or coins, it's not that big of a deal. And I don't think there's going to be this great short squeeze unless the other number's true. The other number.
Okay, I want to set the stage here before we fully dive into that. Right. So I think there's one thing I feel is very important, which is that there's a large percentage of BSV that is tied up in BTC wallets, right? Or with that is still with all the people that held BTC and BCH up to 2018.
Is it really though?
Well, I'm curious. I don't think I feel like nobody has ever really put some numbers to like what percentage that could be. And even if it's 10%, that's massive, right?
Yeah, that would be pretty big.
Because you could always assume that coins were more freely tossed around, right? Before 2017, before 2020, right? Or
What
2020.
would be the theory for why they come out now though versus any other time?
Oh no, I'm not saying that they'll come out. My point is that we have to understand that like a 0.5% of all BSVs is actually more. It's bigger than it seems because there's a ton of BSV that will probably not move, for a while until that price jumps up. Then they'll eventually be forced to move. Some people will never move, right? But some people will never split. But some of those coins are not gonna move until Ruth Heisman's prophetic tweet comes true. So they're like I just want to set that stage where I feel like a tiny, what seems like a tiny amount of the BSV economy is actually even bigger than it seems, especially in relation to BCH and BTC.
True.
Okay.
Good
point. Second question I want to ask, just to help me understand. So Robinhood, yeah, we totally, it's a derivatives platform. I understand that when I buy a Bitcoin on Robinhood, that is a derivative. My question, and that's why that's definitely why today they don't allow you to send your BSV to the platform to sell. My question is, but they do allow you to send it off. So what happens when I send it off? What do they do? Do they buy it at that moment? Or do they have a reserve, and that once that reserve goes dry, everything goes to shit? What does that look like? You think?
What are you talking about? Bitfinex? You're talking about it on a normal basis?
I'm saying Robinhood.
Yeah. Okay. So Robinhood is a custodial exchange for the most part, right? You can withdraw. Actually, it took them forever to allow withdrawing, so that's one warning sign. They're really not interested in you withdrawing. They've established that precedent that you're going to keep the stuff sitting there.
Well, that's kind of bullish in a way, right? I mean, I think that means okay. I'll let you continue, but I do have a bit of a conspiracy theory on the Bitfinex thing. But yeah, all right, I'll go ahead.
We're talking Robinhood here. So Robinhood mysteriously allowed BSV to be traded like a month after every exchange went out and said, "Oh, you're attacking Hodlonaut, so we're gonna delist you."
Yeah.
Right. So, and if you look at kind of the Robinhood guys, I mean, to think that they're pro BSV would be a gross mistake.
Yeah.
I don't think they have any reason to be pro BSV. I don't think they planned on making a lot of money by offering BSV. It was against the principles of everybody else in crypto. If anything, they took a risk for doing it. So why? I mean, if they were friendly to BSV, we would know about it. They would have been on stage at every Coin Geek there ever was. Jimmy Wynn would probably know them personally. We would know, but they didn't. There's just this weird, silent, mysterious exchange that offered this BSV, even though they barely offer hardly any other thing. So why do they do it? And then furthermore, I remember this because I was like, oh, good. Like, it's really hard to find BSV, and this would be an easy way to buy it. This app seems pretty stable right now. Everybody's coming on board. And so why not own some BSV on Robinhood? And then they promised, well, when are you going to allow withdrawals? Because BSV, obviously anybody in it knows that you're going to use it. Like, to have it not be withdrawable is kind of weird, especially to a BSVer, right? How am I going to use SLictionary? How am I going to use Twitch? How am I going to use any of these apps? I can't even get any BSV off. I have to convert it to dollars and then go somewhere else. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So they promised withdrawals. That was May of 2019. 2020 goes by, a whole year, and nothing happened. And then during the financial crisis of COVID in March of 2020, they basically went bankrupt. So it was like, wow, not only can you not get your BSV off, but it's looking like if they don't find some capital, you may not get your dollars off either, your stocks. So it looked like a disaster. And even then, even after they got saved by Citadel and other people that saved them, a year later, they still didn't offer withdrawals. It took them like 2 years. I'm sorry, but I have a wallet on SLictionary, and it didn't take 2 years to be able to allow people to move BSV on and off. It's just not necessary. It's not that complicated, even from a technical standpoint. So why do they do it? And then when they did the beta program, everybody's like, oh, you can finally withdraw BSV, but it was like, well, only certain people can, and they still don't let New Yorkers do it. So you can buy BSV in New York, but you can't withdraw. The whole thing is bullshit to me. And so to me, it just looks like they're just part of the problem, right? Like, they're a derivative custodial exchange that can basically give you that, like the gambling example, the Super Bowl example. Just be like, yeah, you want to own BSV, but we're not going to actually get it for you. We're just going to put your number down. But, don't cry when it goes down, because you're going to lose your money. We're going to take your real money, right? That will be real. We will take your money, but you won't ever get anything out, because we're just going to, we know all the people that are making it go down, and we're going to be good. So that's kind of where that stands. And if you think about this on a bigger perspective with, say, like an NFT offering, let's say I offer 100, Bored Apes, right? And I am a popular guy, and I get a couple movie stars and a couple of singers and rappers, and they all say how great the Bored Apes are, right? And I sell each of those initially for, let's say, $1,000 each. So what's 1,000 times 1,000? It's $1 million, right? So I sell these digital pictures that cost me how much to make a Bored Ape? What do you think?
50 cents.
It's not even 50 cents, dude. It's like a software program, and you put in a few numbers and it alters them. One has a hat, the other one has a banana, whatever. Right? It costs zero. Like essentially zero. Maybe it costs them $50 a month for the software to generate them. And they just sold $1 million. How many people do you think are going to sell their Bored Ape like the next day after they bought it in the IPO? Like, out of the 1,000 people that bought a Bored Ape, how many are going to sell the very next day?
900 are going to try.
No way. What if it doesn't? What if the price the next day is the same price they bought it for?
Yeah.
Then they're just going to sit on it, right? Maybe one guy sells back out, like thought he was going to make a ton of money, didn't. Even if it doubles, right? If it doubles, who cares? Then the seller who has $1 million in the bank account doesn't have to do anything. The only time the guy that just got $1 million in his bank account for selling nonsense has to do anything is if the price goes down. So if the price goes to, if some idiot goes and tries to sell at auction his Bored Ape for, instead of the 1,000 he paid for it, he panics and he's like, shit, I think this thing's going to go way down. I made a mistake. Let me just sell this thing for $600 and get some of my money back. Well, I have $1 million in the bank account. You think I'm going to let that happen? Okay, guy, I tell you what, not only am I going to give you 600, why don't you just put it up for 1,100? Because I got $1 million in the bank account. I will make the price go up, right? I have $1 million, real money. You have a bunch of Bored Apes. If there's 10 of you that want to sell it at a lower price than 1,000, I'm going to buy all 10 of those, and then 10 more for 20% higher than 1,000. I'm going to pay 12. I'm going to make the price go up.
Right. So you're going to market make the floor go
Yes.
up, and then
Yes.
it'll naturally spiral out into whatever, right?
Yes. I just described to you how the real fine art world sometimes works.
Oh, for sure. Oh, I
I
know
just
that very
described
well.
to you how all these NFTs got these exorbitant prices. I just
Yeah.
described to you the easy math. When you have $1 million in your pocket and some 10 people or even 100 people want to sell, it's not a problem. I have all your money. I just have to
Right.
have the confidence to and the marketing to say, okay, I'm going to buy all of you out, right? And then I'm going to bring in Snoop Dogg, and he's going to go, no, 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 you guys are missing it, man. The freaking the Bored Apes rock. Like, I just went to the club last night and they let me in because I flashed my Bored Ape.
Yeah.
Like, no, I think they let you in because you're Snoop Dogg, Snoop. Like, yeah, you flashed your Bored Ape, but I don't think that's why you let you in. So, like,
Right.
now everybody's like, oh, I got to buy Bored Ape. So it's a Ponzi scheme. It's you're
Right.
selling pet rocks. This happens over and over. I've seen it. I've seen fraternity cooks sell stuff like this to college kids. I've seen so many frauds that this is just one of many. It's just on a bigger scale, and
Right.
and it's so easy to execute when you can take all this money up front and you have a little bit of marketing. And I'm sorry, but always ask where the money's coming from. When you buy something, either it's worth something immediately. I mean, if it's a hammer, whatever. But I'm saying, like, if you buy a security or you buy anything that's DeFi, just tell me where the interest is coming from. Tell me why this thing should go up. Give me a real reason.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if I pay $100,000 for the house and it can rent it can rent out for $5,000 a month, it's the greatest purchase ever. Like, you get a massive discount. You're gonna make your money back in like 16 months. That's an amazing price, $100,000 for a house that rents $5,000 a month. That's a mistake in the price. That's a real reason to buy it. If the house doesn't rent at all because it's filled with termites and rats and cat piss,
Yeah.
it's not going to rent for anything. No one's going to live there. You're paying $100,000 for a piece of crap. I mean, maybe the land value is worth something, but you see my point? Like,
I do. Um, so that's how everything else works. But when it comes to BSV, I mean, do you think that BSV is particularly targeted for this type of, like, the suppression in the derivatives and stuff?
not just BSV.
Yeah.
You ever hear of a token called Flow?
No, I tried not to pay attention to.
If you weren't around in early 2020, 21, you probably never heard of it. But Flow is a blockchain that has every movie star, hedge fund, financial star, like, just like, if we had one of the 100 people that you've heard of their name that's involved in Flow in BSV, you'd be like running around in circles explaining how rich you're going to be because,
That's
you know,
hilarious. Yeah.
Ashton Kutcher or Tiger Global just
Yeah.
bought. I mean, everybody's running around celebrating Christian Auger Hansen coming into BSV. It's a great thing, no doubt. But I mean, it's one guy, right? Flo had the I'm not a big soccer fan, but what's the league that Real Madrid is in? Like, Real Madrid's arguably the biggest soccer program in the world.
Yeah.
And they were doing a deal with Flow for NFTs. NBA, right?
Mhm.
Literally, LeBron James dunks were on the first NFTs that were popular were the NBA's Basketball Association's NFTs in early 2021.
This was all on some blockchain called Flow.
All on Flow. I think Mark Cuban was on Flow. Ashton.
Oh, that's
Kutcher,
hilarious. I mean, and it definitely is
Dogg.
not. Nobody knows about it now, I'm sure.
Well,
Or is it still
everybody's
around?
kind of heard of it, but my point is, do you know what their market cap is right now? It's like $1 billion. Like they're maybe 20% higher than BSV. Now,
Okay.
they were
So
like,
still top 50.
yeah, but like now they were 10 times higher than that. But my point is, like, anybody who says that BSV is bad at marketing just isn't paying attention,
Yeah.
because Flow is amazing at marketing. They're the best. There's nobody better. Ethereum pales in comparison to Flow. Flow is all marketing.
Yeah.
And
Marketing has so little to do with it. I mean, I knew FTX was a fraud because I saw the Tom Brady commercial like a year before, and I literally, I even like posted about it. I was like, this is clearly not a fraud, right? Because they have a Tom Brady commercial. I mean, it's like, yeah, no amount of marketing would make FTX a good business, and this is true for no amount of marketing is going to turn any of these coins into a good, stable, long-term system. So, yeah,
you have to truly believe that the system works, and you have to use it. Like, fundamentally, you can make the everything work out by actually using the money, right? To buy the SlickDef tokens and put up bounties and all that stuff. That will make it go up, right? That'll make the whole system work. But like thinking that marketing is going to work is wrong in this space because it's manipulated, right? They can just make flow go down. Vitalik, and if he wants, and Sammy Fries and CZ, they can just get together and be like, we're worth over almost 150, $200 billion. And we have credit lines, and like people will lend us money. We can lend each other. We can print money, right? Like, can literally print it. Hey, Stuart Hogan are down there, like Tether, print us up a couple billion. Let's buy some BTC. Let's jack that baby up. And you know what? I don't like hearing about this flow stuff. They're our enemy. We're about to start Solana and BNB, whatever. Let's push that one down. And Craig, we don't like him because he could end us all. Let's push that one down. And Algorand, don't like them. Let's push them down.
right.
I mean, it's really simple.
Okay, so to get back to Bitfinex, like let's examine what's happening here. So the chart was looking like there is a lot of, whether it's BTC or BSV, I understand, like, I don't even, I mean, obviously it matters in terms of like the dollar amount, but the point here is that there's a huge amount of collateral, regardless of which coin it's being measured in, that's being held against these against BSV, that's going to close apparently a week from now. Although I did see the chart today, like shorts like eliminated like 90% of them or something. I don't know. And that,
hard to say because their data can say whatever they want it to say, right? We just learned this in FTX. Like, it's like we can't even figure out whether the number they put up for the short interest is BTC or BSV. And that's a difference of 3 orders of magnitude. So that's kind of important. And like, maybe the BSV guys that are trading on that exchange are just not competent. I don't know, but it shouldn't be that hard. It should be like a right click. Like, what does this number mean? It means millions of BTC. I mean, it's any provider worth their salt, Bloomberg, even Yahoo Finance, which is a little bit Mickey Mouse, they all provide these things. It's either in a little tiny small print or you press a little information button.
Well, I mean, the idea, any like when it's BSV USD, the chart is measured in USD. When it's BTC Tether USD, that's measured in tethers. When it's BSV BTC shorts, somehow it's hard to tell. It's like, it's weird.
It's not hard. You just provide the information. It's like I was trying to figure out what the volume on Robinhood was the other day. And since I didn't have the app, I asked someone, hey, can you pull up your Robinhood and tell me what it says the volume is on Robinhood for the BSV trading today? And they were like, I can't find it.
Oh, really?
Like,
Let me see.
I realize that the app is simplified, but
Yeah.
no volume information. And this is what we're dealing with here. This is Mickey Mouse stuff. Like, I don't think you realize it, but like when I was a kid, you really couldn't buy a stock, like unless you went through like a pretty long process to get a brokerage account. They wanted all kinds of information. You
Yeah,
had to have a,
you can't find the volume information. It's not there.
yeah.
It's
I'm
hilarious.
saying, like, it's a joke.
Yeah.
This whole industry is so new that there's no rules. There's no like, hey, just be decent and give people the information.
Right.
Like, that's just standard. There's you might, as a libertarian or anti-government or whatever you are philosophically or politically, I get it, right? Maybe you just want the world to be the world, but that's fine. Either way, I'm fine with it. You want to have no financial rules, then just expect that a lot of people are going to make bets on Ponzi schemes and get ripped apart. And even with regulation, it's still going to happen. But either way, either you have to do the diligence or you should hope that the exchange is doing the diligence. I do the diligence because I have to, because the numbers got big for me because I was in the industry and I had other people's money. And I can't just like not do my fiduciary duty and understand how all this stuff works. But the average Joe who's in there buying DeFi on some promise and buying Ethereum because Vitalik says it's cool, and in the ICO process, these are called suckers, right? And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the collapse of all these suckers, and the suckers. Look. You can blame the government for it, or you can blame the suckers, or you can blame the hucksters. It doesn't matter. What matters is if you don't understand the reality, you shouldn't be in there.
Yeah.
And whether that comes from the high hand of government or God, or it comes from yourself, the point is, it's just a mess. It's a true mess. And what I want to see happen is I want to see the Bitcoin Association say, who are the good guys? Who cares if we're on more? I don't want to celebrate that we're on Huobi in Japan or some crap. I want to know that I'm on a good exchange. I want an audit. I want the BA to say, if you want to be an exchange and trade BSV, we will support you after you audit, after you provide the volume information to the customers. We want to know, okay, if you want to do a derivative, we want to know all about it. Show us what you're doing. At least give people the ability to look and find out what you're doing.
Right.
People couldn't figure out what Sam Bankman-Fried was doing, just like they're unable to figure out what Binance is doing, right? The balance sheet for Bitfinex was just posted by Bitfinex, and it had no BSV in it, which means basically if that balance sheet is correct, or that attestment, which is not really an audit, if that attestment by some weird third party that they probably paid off indeed has no BSV in it, then I was actually wrong the whole time in thinking that the shorts on Bitfinex were actually borrowed. Turns out they're derivatives too. They're not borrowed, and they do have to come up with it. So maybe there is a potential for a short squeeze if they're really closing it. But the other thing is, I don't know why they're closing it. I wrote an article on Twitch kind of describing why one reason why I think they could be closing it. It's not a good reason, right? It's a reason of, hey, we're starting to get investigated, and maybe it's a good time to start deleting some things. And the easiest way to delete trading data is to get rid of the market. Then you don't have to keep it anymore, right? We closed all the books. Let's burn them. Right?
Yeah. You know what my theory is? My theory is that these exchanges don't want BSV because nobody ever sells BSV for other coins. And I think that when people sell BSV, they're always trying to get dollars out of it, like 95% plus. Whereas all these other coins, you can trade them and arbitrage them with other coins. So people want to take Clown Coin and exchange it for Poop Coin, but most people don't ever take BSV and try to exchange it back into anything probably other than BTC, I'd say, and maybe like a tiny percentage does BCH or whatever, like miners maybe. But I think that plays a major part because that forces these exchanges to actually have the liquidity to provide the dollars for these BSVs. And I think that they just don't even want to deal with that, which I don't know, seems like can run into the same legality issues or whatever there is too. But like, I feel that now I have another conspiracy theory, probably unlikely, but tell me what you think about this. When Bitfinex, if Bitfinex has to close these shorts, that means that they have to buy the BSV. They have to acquire. Do they buy it from the customers or do they buy it from somewhere else? Like to close the short, they have to get it from somewhere, right?
It's a great question. Where's your BSV right now?
Yeah. Where's
Seriously,
mine?
where is it?
Oh, I hold it in a Simply Cash wallet for the most part.
In a wallet.
Yeah.
How the hell is Bitfinex going to get the BSV out of your wallet?
Great question. Oh, that's a great question. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Hard, right? They
Yeah.
can do it, but they have to go push the price up to entice you to take it out of your Simply Cash wallet, put it on an exchange in just preparation for you to sell it,
Right.
so that they can buy it.
Right. So the only way that it's legitimate, that it's not a phony business entirely, is if when you buy the short, they're holding that BSV in their cold wallet or whatever for you to eventually
Well,
pay
no,
you out for it.
they can. What happens with a short is you want to short BSV, and so you borrow my BSV. I'm at Bitfinex too. I have BSV in my account that they're holding in a vault, let's say, or a cold wallet. And you say, I want to short it. So what happens is Bitfinex takes my BSV, gives it to you, and you sell it on the open market and pocket the cash.
Right.
Then when BSV goes down, this is optimistic for you. If BSV goes down, you go back into the market and buy it back and then hand it back to Bitfinex and they give it back to me. I'm no different. I'm just the guy that's been holding BSV while it goes down.
So the only way it's legitimate is if they have enough reserves to cover all the shorts and for you to take your BSV out.
What
right?
they're supposed to have
Yeah.
is the BSV.
Right.
Right. If you want to go back and buy back your short, they have to have the BSV either there or they have to buy it on the open market back for you.
Well, what if it's leveraged, right? Which I'm sure it is, right? They need to have up to that amount, right?
No, in shorting, I'm lending you the shares. I need my shares back. I don't care whether you're levered or not. You've got to put those shares back in my account because I'm supposed to own those. I lent them to you, but you got to give them back, all of them, right? It doesn't matter. The leverage is irrelevant. You've got to just give me back my BSV. That means you either can buy them from someone else or you just, you know, if somebody else owns them on the exchange, you can just buy them off of them, you know, and you're going to push the price up to do that. But the bottom line is it doesn't matter because Bitfinex doesn't appear to be a legal, I wouldn't say legal because there isn't really any legality in this stuff because they're all unregulated, but let's just say fair. They're not really running a fair exchange. So there is no borrow. They didn't borrow it from anyone. They just wrote you an IOU ticket and they just said, okay, you're short and you're long and all these are derivatives. And so at the end of the day, when they close them out, sure, then they may have to come up with some BSV or buy some or sell some and they'll close out the thing. But you know, there could be any number of reasons why they're doing what they're doing. But mainly it's probably a positive, at least in a slight way, that they have to do it, because obviously with all this turmoil, it's all of a sudden become a priority for them. And there could be many, I can think of a lot of good reasons why they would do it. Another one would be just screwing their customers, right? This Bitfinex and Tether could very well be bankrupt right now. Most likely bankrupt, in my opinion. And one great way to raise money would be to tell everybody that your short has to be covered, and then to just make the price go up and make you lose, all those shorts lose money. That's assuming that those customers are not their customers. But even if it's CZ that shorted all the shares on Bitfinex, Bitfinex and CZ might be fighting, right? I mean, like, CZ and Sammy Fries are no longer friends. They both call each other frauds in broad daylight, right? They were formerly friends working against BSV and for BTC, and they were all palled up for a little while. Right. They're not friends anymore, right? So there's a chance that Tether and Binance aren't friends either. And if that's the case, and they could kind of force Binance to get rid of all those gains that they owe them by saying, "Oh, guess what? Oh my God, CZ, I'm sorry, we have to close down this business because because the block size is getting too big and we don't want to handle it anymore." Even though the Bitcoin Association gave us the light client and totally told us that we could easily do this, it just seems too complicated. We don't have the people. We're just going to have to close it down. And oh, by the way, when we close it down, we have to go find a bunch of BSV and push the price up. So all those gains you have that have to pay you, well, those gains are going to be less now. Or maybe we start a ginormous price run in BSV and you lose not only all the gains, but you end up with a loss. Now you owe us money, CZ. Right? That could be a reason, right? It could be totally rigging the price up for all we know.
Well, so that's my conspiracy theory. My conspiracy theory is that Bitfinex is just trying to acquire BSV and not have to get rid of it.
Well, I think Bitfinex is probably not in the best of shape. So any way they can generate money or lessen their debt would be good for them. I mean, Sammy Fries would have loved to have the chance for a month or 2 months to try and figure out a way to make money or do anything rather than immediately go bankrupt, right? So all I can tell you is this: Bitfinex making this change is not a good sign for Bitfinex. Whether it's a great sign for BSV, I don't know, because I don't know their exact motivation, but every motivation I can come up with is generally a blight mark on Bitfinex itself.
Well, so, okay, we can maybe close out with this. If it's bad for Bitfinex, why BSV specifically? Like, would they do this with any other coin? And why would it be BSV specifically?
Well, as you said earlier on, BSV is the most shorted on their exchange, right? Now, BSV could be much bigger naked short on Binance or some other, or OKX or some other places. But for them, compared to the other cryptos, this derivative they have called BSV in the short direction is pretty big. So, when you're a organization in trouble, you generally look for big solutions. And, why wouldn't they worry about closing the shorts on Flow? Well, maybe the shorts on Flow are 1/1000th the size of the BSV short. So
we also know that like BSV is obviously most shorted, but it is like 42nd or 46th market cap, right? So even if the BTC shorts are lower, that's still a much higher like valuation, right? In like the shorts of, I don't know, some top 10 coin. All of them are like,
See, you got me there. I don't know. I was told that BSV is the most shorted on Bitfinex
crypto that is on Bitfinex. Now, whether that's in dollar terms or just in percentage of outstanding terms, I don't know. I never followed it that much. Mainly, I don't really care that much because I'm a little bit more both long term and also just looking at the major catalysts. So to me, this Bitfinex thing's not really that big of a deal. I mean, it could be the catalyst that finally makes it so that people aren't naked shorting BSV. Maybe it's the only source of it. It's hard for me to tell because, again, these things aren't on the books. When you're dealing with what I think are crooks and people that are not going to run an honest business or a fair exchange, you don't know what you're dealing with. There's a reason why Tether is still around. It's because no one can get at their books. They're not really in a regulated country. I mean, nobody knows where Binance is even located. The headquarters has shifted 3 or 4 times. We don't even know where he is. I think they're about ready to prosecute that guy from the sound of it, from some of the alerts that are coming out from pretty reliable sources. We don't even know where he is. So like, when people say that this is the wild, wild, wild West, it's true. Like, you know, in the American West, it was hard to find the criminals because they're out in the middle of the desert, right? Like, nobody in New York City or Philadelphia in 1792 wants to go running around the Texas desert to find what some bandit is doing, right? Yeah. It's not worth anybody's time. So it's the same thing here. These guys are running around in these semi-regulated nation states and weird cities that have no rules, and their exchanges have no rules, and it's in cyberspace, right? Like the accountant for FTX was located in Decentraland.
Yeah.
I mean, how funny is that?
It's crazy.
That is hilarious. Like,
I didn't know that. I don't even know what Decentraland really is. I've heard of it, but I don't even know.
It's a virtual game. Like it's
like Second Life,
the movie, right? Like what's the movie everybody watches?
Oh, the Ready Player One.
Ready Player One. Like what if your lawyer was a piece of software inside of a game? I mean, like, you know, I mean, it's kind of a thing of things to come a little bit, but to say that your auditor or your accountant is in a game called Decentraland, that's their headquarters location. I mean, to a guy like me, that's so absurd that it's actually kind of hilarious. Like,
I agree.
You couldn't write something that good, like fictionally.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's it's like a Philip K. Dick story or something. Okay. It's a lot to think about. Well, definitely. Okay, I think we can make the conclusion, at least regarding this Bitfinex thing, that it's bad for Bitfinex, which seems to line up with all the exchange dominoes kind of tipping, which is great. It may or may not be good for BSV. I mean, my prediction is, even if it's good for BSV, it's like, how good is it really? You know,
I think it's great for BSV because, like we said earlier, the important thing is that what BSV needs is more apps, more developers, more things to do with the BSV, more reasons to come and use it. Like, you know, the next year for us in SLictionary isn't talking to crypto people. We're literally going to go out to schools, colleges, high schools, Scrabble tournaments. Like, we're about to spend a year saying, okay, we've got a good enough product now where we can sell it to muggles and be like, why aren't you making money? If you're in college and you have no money, why aren't you coming to write these definitions? We have corporations. We had a jiu-jitsu dojo willing to put Jiu-Jitero up on Word Bounty for $9 just to have the name of their sensei on the actual result for the word. We can keep doing that over and over again. We're going to have celebrities defining words to create NFTs that people can own. They're like really cool autographs. And as this all happens, these are things that are interesting to people who don't even care about Bitcoin. They're just like, hey, it would be cool to own an autograph of Michael Jordan's definition of basketball. Like,
Right.
there's only one dictionary in the world where you can do that. It's ours. And it doesn't matter that we pay in BSV. What matters is, do you want to own that? And if the answer is yes, if you think that's worth something, then we're going to do all right. And I think that times, like you said, all the other guys like yourself in music and times 1,000 is going to be the reason why people want to go to the grass is greener BSV and want to get into this ecosystem.
Right.
And as that keeps getting sexier and we can sell to muggles, it doesn't matter what FTX and Binance. In fact, as they go down, it just makes us louder. Like, oh, is there anything left? Oh shit, the BSV guys are still around, and there's like cool apps and stuff. Like maybe there's something to this.
Right. And eventually, I think you'll even see, I don't know if it's going to come from within BSV or without, but eventually, like, people will, I think exchanges will use BSV as their unit of account, because it's just the best for it. And in the same way that, like, exchanges using BTC, absorbs value into BTC, I think you're going to see that in BSV, and eventually people will just be like, wait, the thing that we're trading on is actually the best one. And
how about the most obvious thing in the world? Your company and my company are trading on the exchanges, not with some kind of ICO token that doesn't have any meaning, but our actual shares, which are real digital rights to the earnings of our companies, are placed on an exchange, and everything the shares are BSV, the dividends are BSV, and the exchange is operating with all the atomic swaps and all this stuff. And it's not an exchange to trade one cryptocurrency for another cryptocurrency. It's a way to trade BSV or dollars for shares in your company. Like, how obvious is that? Like, we could put the NASDAQ out of business or the NYSE out of business. We don't need to put Binance out of business. Binance is worthless. They're just trading. It's a casino, betting on red, black, and green on the roulette wheel. Who cares? None of this shit's worth anything. But shares in your company that has income is worth something. Shares in my company are going to be worth something. So that's what we want to trade. We don't want to trade cryptocurrencies. We want to trade money for stocks or money.
Well, I tend to agree. I think for the short term, some value is going to need to be absorbed out of all those cryptos into BSV, or at least that would be one way to accelerate things. But all right, yeah, I want to, we're hitting almost 3 hours, and it's been a fantastic conversation. Thanks so much, Jack. We walked through so much. I hope that anybody watching gives this another watch, because we really covered a lot. And I actually trying to you touched on Tether a little bit, and I think it would be great if maybe we did another episode at some point and really walked through Tether, because I'd love to get the more details about everything to do with Tether, because I think it's such an important topic that will be, in my view, the final domino to fall, that's going to bring the whole thing down. So I would love to, kind of know more about Tether and all that. So hopefully I would love to get you back on for that. And thanks so much for coming on. Really been educational, hopefully, for everybody listening. So
and don't forget to get yourself a word.
For sure.
I don't mean define a word. You already own Jazz. I mean, put up a bounty for something that's.
Well, I was going to say, my record label is called Geist, and I did want to be the first to put up the definition for Geist, or maybe even a word bounty, but I think it might have to be me, because I don't know. Well, we'll see. I'll put up the bounty maybe, and we'll see. We got a lot of words.
Just make sure that if you're gonna advertise for Geist, you want to use a pay mail that has your your brand in it,
Hmm.
because what it looks like is at the very bottom of the definition, it's just going to say like
Right.
dollar sign Geist if it's like a hand cash PayMal or something.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the only thing people will see. But we haven't done it yet, but eventually we'll make that clickable and they can find out more about Geist just by looking up music or song or podcast. And that's what you want. You just want to get those looks where people go, I keep seeing this Geist word all the time. Even when I'm in the dictionary, I see it. So let me click on it this time. And then that's what's really cool, because you're getting a form of marketing that's related to your business. But even better, when they click that light bulb, you get some of your money back. So it could turn out to be the first form of negative budget advertising that there's ever been. Like you can potentially make money marketing your company over time.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jack. And definitely hope to have you again. And thanks to everybody who's watching. Everybody have a good night. See you next
Take it
time.
easy.